This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
It's a very ominous day. The wind is blowing, the clouds are getting bigger, the rain is on the horizon. This is a live safari. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's live safari. I would call it a sunrise safari, but we are not having any of those. Remember, for the first 45 minutes of this drive, we'll be dedicating it to all the children all over the world. So please remember to send your questions through to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv, but don't stop sending in yours. You can hashtag WildEarth or comment on the various social media platforms, and we'll get to them a little bit later. But we're sitting at quite an interesting scene with 3 lions feasting on a buffalo carcass. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert, and we're all layered up trying to keep nice and warm. Shall we have a closer look at those lions? So for those of you that have joined us on the last couple of mornings, you would know that the 2 male lions, one of which is fast asleep and the other one which is eating on a carcass, they killed this buffalo a few days ago. I think we're on day 4 now, and there is virtually nothing left. They've eaten everything. The little lioness that you can see that has her back end to us, she almost looks like she's a cub, she's so small, is just chewing on one of the legs of the buffalo. So that's when you know that all the best parts have been eaten. So this little lion we think is related to these boys and probably a younger sibling. But she lives on her own. But they're all, at one point, were a part of the Ngati pride, and it wouldn't be uncommon for them all to meet up if the rest of the lionesses that have moved off just north of our traverse do come back down this way. And every single day that we have been sitting here, more and more vultures keep appearing. So I'm wondering if those lions are going to see all this vulture activity. Also, because it's been very cold and windy for the last 48 hours, those vultures are not going to go anywhere at all. So that could definitely bring in some more predators. You can see them. The vultures are also very miserable. They've been sitting up there, freezing cold, not able to go and fly around and look for other things to eat. They're just patiently waiting for these lions to move off of the carcass. But they're going to be very disappointed because there isn't much left to eat. And Butterfly, you've noticed that. You've said how the carcass has indeed shrunk a fair amount. It's about a quarter of the size from when we first found it. There's basically just some meat in between the ribs, which I think the lions are going to struggle to feast on. And the skin, we can see them gnawing away, trying to get every last morsel. Because otherwise that means that they have to go out and look for something else to eat. And I don't think that any of these lions are wanting to do that in this weather. They're going to want to sleep it off for a couple of hours before even thinking about their next meal. Or maybe their next meal will just come stumbling across straight to them. Jared, at this rate, this is buffalo jerky. It is no longer a fresh carcass. If you're not sure what jerky is, or as we call it in South Africa or Africa, biltong, it's basically dried meat that is normally flavored in South Africa with a coriander and some other spice. And then you can see how dark the meat has gone. It's now dry-aged buffalo steak. But there really isn't anything left. And like I said, you can see that they are struggling. That male lion at the back is gnawing on the hide, trying to pull little bits of flesh off. But it's quite difficult when you've got such a big mouth and such a big head. And I'm hoping that the vultures do come down today. And I think that this might be the end of the carcass for the lions. And it'd be really great to see how these specialized feeders, the vultures that is, are able to get into all the nooks and crannies of the buffalo that the other predators aren't able to reach. But they've really drawn in quite a big scene. We've seen black-backed jackals as we arrived, just lingering on the outskirts. The hyenas are just hiding about in the grass, trying to keep out of the wind. And once these cats do move, it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be chaos. You know, James, I've sat and we've watched lions and leopards and, you know, these big cats feasting and feasting to where you would think that their bellies are about to burst, but I don't know if they can eat to the point where they make themselves sick. I mean, I remember once, I'm going to tell you a random little story because this is what I do, is we had a Jack Russell and she unfortunately got into her food box. We had like a plastic container that was airtight, and as a young pup she managed to push it over. How she did it, I don't know, but she must have eaten about 10 kilograms worth of dog pellets, and she couldn't move, and she still wasn't sick. I mean, she obviously didn't feed her for the whole day, but she was fine. She didn't vomit anything up, so I've never seen a lion sort of vomiting after indulging in too much food. I think they just get to the point where they must get a stomachache of some sort, because you'll see them rest. They get quite restless when they lay down with those big bellies and they roll around, just as this male has been doing. He sits up and then he lays down, then he puts his paws in the air. So I think there must be some kind of discomfort, but whether it will make him sick or not, I'm not sure. They're actually becoming quite agitated, the lions. They're feeling the pressure from the vultures this morning. Some of the vultures have even moved from the trees now down to the ground and are literally just waiting for that moment. Lots of different types of vultures too, which is going to be exciting to look at. And there, you can just see them flying every now and then. I think sitting up in the tops of the trees must be quite chilly for those vultures, so down on the ground might be a better option. They just need to be quick on their feet, though, because if those lions do rush at them, to try and encourage them to move away, like we were saying the other day, vultures need a bit of a run to get going. Otherwise, they get stuck on the ground. Dizzy, no, the carcass is not sort of putrid and smelly just yet. I actually haven't even really seen any maggots on that carcass, which is surprising. So perhaps the temperature is not good enough to hatch the maggots, because it has been very cold, and obviously those eggs are temperature dependent, and they need to hatch at a certain temperature. And we're also not downwind of the carcass. The wind is sort of sweeping across us at the moment. So thankfully, me with a weak stomach doesn't have to endure the horrific smells, but I'm sure that will all change when the vultures get in there and the hyenas get in there, and then we move around a little bit. Now, if you're wondering where everybody else is this morning, it's been pouring with rain. It rained most of the evening here at Pridelands at Eco Training, and it only stopped in the early hours of the morning, and I believe that Djuma and Ngala have had sort of the heavens open, and so they've been struggling a little bit too. And I'm worried that weather is coming this way. But for now, the wind is keeping it at bay. So we're quite lucky. But I'm happy to see that they've got some action and that all three lions are willing to be on camera. Sometimes they are a little bit shy. And I think those big bellies now are forcing them to not go anywhere. But from here, I don't think it'll be a big move. I think after they've decided, right, that there's nothing there, if they'll march on down towards Leopard Dam, which is just to the east of us, and probably have a drink and lay in the nice Tamboti thickets where they will be sheltered from the wind. Right now, they're not really sheltered from the wind. How crazy is that? His stomach is so fat that when he lays flat on the ground, it's higher than his head. I mean, that really says something, doesn't it? You can also see how dirty they are. They really have not put any effort in at all into grooming themselves. They're just so focused on feasting. Mason, who is just 11 years old, now with being able to tell the difference between the boys and the girls when it comes to lions. It can be quite tricky, especially when they're really small. They all look the same because when a lion is born, it's born with its eyes closed. It doesn't have a big mane if it's a boy. Those things take years and years and years to develop. So normally for the first few weeks, it's tough. It's really tough. But what you have to rely on is the lions lifting up their tails. So when they lift up their tails, they expose the bits that make them a male or a female, a boy or a girl, and then you sort of look. But it takes a lot of practice. I know that I'm definitely guilty of missexing a male or female leopard or lion cub, and we look very carefully. It's quite funny amongst all of the guides when there are new leopard or lion cubs and somebody manages to get a screenshot or a photo of it, the little ones with their tails up. Those photos get sent around to everybody, and everybody has their opinion before somebody just blurts out what they say, because it's so easy to make a mistake. But it's also just years and years of experience. But they're very similar sizes, so it's not like, you get one that's just all of a sudden much bigger than the other. This will happen only after a little bit of time. But I'm really, really good that that little lioness is good. Now you can see some pink hues in the clouds in the distance. The sun has just managed to poke its head above the line of clouds that's sort of covering the trees. So we didn't get our magnificent sunrise as we normally do. But we are in for a cold day. I don't think it's going to get more than about 18 or 19 degrees Celsius here. And I think that the wind is here to stay at least for the next couple of hours. Amazing. We're going to do some repositioning, but while we do that, it seems as though Trishal has been brave enough to go out in the rain. Let's go see what she's going to search for.
Yes, I'm brave. I finally decided to step out. It is, as you can see, very wet. I have lots of water dripping down on me, but we have some friends that are bathing. Oh, and my name is Trishala, by the way, everybody, and I've got BK on camera this very wet morning. And hopefully that will mean that we can find a few smaller things, as it is, as it does go when it's rainy like this. But maybe we might even be able to see some leopard tortoises or speaks-hinged tortoise walking about. Here we have a starling taking advantage of the water. I always like to remember that for the animals, this is just amazing. Another bout of rain. Maybe dry season won't be that dry. Things are still pretty green, and they'll become greener. Mushrooms will start to pop out. I said mushrooms. You know how much I love them. And they'll take advantage of this sudden burst of water. It's been raining the entire night, and then into the morning. I see some wildebeest running up ahead of us. Let's go and check it out. As I speed away, see how fast I'm driving. It's just too wet to drive much faster than this. Oh yeah, this is Ferrari Safari. Ultimate Ferrari Safari. Nancy, you'd like to know if some of the small pans are going to be filling up with this rain. They'll definitely become a little saturated, so the soil will be saturated. So there'll be a bit of a puddle, but they won't be filling up totally. We're going to need consistent rain for a while for that to happen, but it has rained for quite a few hours. I would say since I went to bed last night at about 10:30, 11, it was raining. So it has been pretty consistent. but it won't be enough to fill up the pans just yet. Morning. Good morning. Yes, it's going to be one of those drives, I think. Why the long faces, wildebeest? Do you not like the 13 degrees Celsius, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, and rainy weather? I think that's a yes. Quite a bit of running around and chasing happening. I'm going to move forward. Oh, maybe they're coming this way. Okay, I'm just going to move a little bit because they seem to be doing a fun run. See that there? Oh, and they all just stop in time for me to show you. Now, they would have also just experienced a rut, and some of the males will still be feeling quite testosterone-y, and I've seen quite a few of them kind of displaying aggressive tendencies, but not aggressive in the sense of, well, there's some running. Not aggressive in the sense of, you know, drawing and fighting like that, but lots of chasing, lots of snorting. During the breeding season, the males become quite territorial and solitary. Let's just move again, BK, sorry. They become quite aggressive and territorial, and then once they're done, they move back into these breeding herds for little bits, but they've still got all those hormones coursing through them. Okay, now we can see them more. Hopefully they'll show us their race again. Lisa, you say they've got lots of energy to burn, it seems. Maybe they're just enjoying the fact that it's raining. While they were snorting. At full gait, these guys can run pretty fast. About 80 kilometers per hour, if not a little more. And some are really gunning it there. Yeah, I think they're just enjoying the rain. I'm sure you can hear it coming down. It's quite pleasant and soft. But it definitely is consistent in coming down, soaking us up and the ground. Anyway, Steve has found some birds that are enjoying the rain too, so let's go over and say good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and I wouldn't say that they're enjoying the rain. They're looking quite drenched and unhappy with life. It's a pair of double-banded sand grouse. You know, they waddle along. They make a very nice track in the sand. Their feet are so wide apart that they make almost like a train line sort of track. Doves walk in sort of a line, making a barbed wire, and these guys make a double track. Good morning, my name is Steve, joined by Davisito in the rain, and well, we are really excited to have you with us, although it is very wet and uncomfortable this morning. As you can see by our double-banded sandgrouse, they are looking very, very saturated. So we are going to go towards the western boundary, see if any lions have maybe come in. But tracking this morning is going to be very interesting. I've got my waterproof yellow gloves on today, keep my hands dry and warm. And we are layered with rain gear. And here comes the rain once again. Okay, well, we're going to continue on. Puma, that's, you know, this rain is unprecedented really for this time of year. It does happen from time to time, but Alate's not really about temperature because termites maintain equal temperature in the burrows. So underneath the burrow there, the termites are going woo, well, most of them anyway. And if there's rain which saturates the ground, you can get an emergence of alates, definitely. Obviously, it's more common in the summer months. But those alates are normally standing by. They're normally standing by for an event like this. The ground gets nice and soft. And many of you out there might ask, what is an alate? Well, this little thingy on my right-hand side is a massive termite mound. This is a fungus-growing termite mound. And alates are the reproductives of termites as well as ants. Now, many people call them flying ants. Some people even call this an anthill. But it's not anthill, it's termite mound, and alates could be termites or they could be ants. But it is the reproductives, so the kings and queens that go off to fly and then to form a new colony. And importantly with termites is that they fly and they meet up, and then they need to find an area where they dig. And the female will dig into the ground with the male, they'll mate, have a few eggs first of all, and then a new colony starts. But they can't dig if it hasn't been raining. The ground can be very hard. So this is the perfect kind of moisture. Oh, very good. Well, Taylor McCurdy, hopefully she's not getting too wet, but she's already found you some lions.
Steve, we're actually really lucky. The wind has really kept the clouds at bay for the moment. I won't be jinxing myself because I don't know how long that will last for, but we are enjoying our lions. The male lion that was feasting on the buffalo carcass has now given up. He's admitted defeat. He was basically just chewing on the tough hide of the buffalo, and I think that was exhausting him more than anything. So earlier I'd said that they hadn't paid much attention to cleaning themselves. Why would you bother wiping your face every minute with a napkin if you were just going to carry on eating? But now that he's obviously finished, he's licking his paws, making them nice and wet with his tongue, and then you'll see how he uses them to wipe parts of his face that he cannot reach with that rough tongue. I think that's quite clever. I'm glad that we don't have to lick our hands and then wipe our face. Thank goodness for wet wipes and napkins and all those types of things. But just look how big those feet are. Oh, he's looking a lot better, a bit more to keeping him in good nick. I think maybe his brother, the lion laying next to him, is a little bit sore. He's definitely got an injury in his back leg and he's got an injury in his front. But he will eventually, but it hasn't inhibited him getting a meal And that's, of course, the most important thing. But again, I'll always reiterate, it's survival of the fittest out here. And when you want to try and hunt something like a big buffalo, you run the risks of losing your life. And they are a bit cheeky for sticking in this area. They know that they have been kicked out, they've been ousted from their pride, and they should no longer be lingering in the new male's territory from the far sort of east from Kleseri. Now, a lovely question from young Johan. So animals that utilize the rain are pretty much the herbivore species. So what you'll normally see in this area is when there is a lot of rain, say like near Satara, for example, which is an area in the Kruger National Park, and there's lots of open grasslands there and basalt plains. It's really quite lovely. And if it pours down with rain, within a few weeks you'll see all the elephants and zebra and wildebeest all sort of doing these mini migrations into that area to feed on the nice lush grass. But then if there's rain down in the south, then a few weeks later the elephants and those same animals will head down there. So those species of animals don't hold permanent territory, so they don't need to live in one spot for their whole lives. They basically do, farmers would do cattle or any of their domestic animals, and they rotate their feeding areas. So it's like if you had horses, for example, you normally don't just have one big paddock, you'll have 2 or 3 sections, and you'll let them graze for a week or so in one paddock, and then you'll move them to another paddock to allow that area to revitalize itself, so for the vegetation to have a chance to grow back. Because if the animals know this, graze an area right down to the ground, they're going to have nothing to eat. So if they have the opportunities to move into other areas to feed, they will do so. And if there's rain around, which is very unusual for this time of the year, they'll normally head into those areas because this vegetation is kick-started just by a little bit of rain. Grass in particular doesn't need very much water to grow. It's actually quite incredible to see. So they will do that. Things like lions and leopards that normally hold territories or a home range in a particular area, they don't sort of move them around too much. You normally see up in East Africa how a lion's territory will slightly change, where they're in, say, the migration months, where the food is fairly concentrated into one area, they'll sort of stay in their spots. But then as the migration, as the zebra, the wildebeest, and all the animals that all move together move away and go back down south into Tanzania, then you'll see they have to start looking for food further away from where they have been hanging around. So they will do that slightly. Now that'd be nice, Mr. Lion. What on earth are you chewing on? That doesn't... Lion, I love lions. They are my favorite of the big cats. But I think when you're this age, you can just eat anything in you. They will eat rotten carcasses that have been sitting there for days and days on end. It is very nice. I suppose for this young lass, she's enjoying a big buffalo. She wouldn't be able to bring down an animal of this size on her own, so she's relied heavily on the boys. And it's nice of them to be tolerant of her. You might hear the vultures squawking every now and then. But these male lions, a lot of the time they'll do hunting for themselves, but if there is a chance to scavenge, they will come in, chase other predators off if they can, to try and steal their meals too. So don't always just think it's the hyenas that are really good at scavenging. Lions are also for chasing leopards off of their kills, for chasing cheetah off their kills, for charging and sort of pushing off hyena too. So it's very interesting to watch. I can't wait for the vultures to come down and feed, because the sounds are just unbelievable. You can see enjoying the sun as it's broken through the clouds. Steve's morning seems to be picking up. He moved on from what he had before to some impala.
Thanks, Taylor. There are some Rain this time of year is a very sorry about the robotic voice there, everybody. Seems like we had a dip in internet. We are back. So rain this time of year is a tricky one because the environment hasn't essentially evolved with rain this time of year, which means the animals going into these cold winter nights, getting wet like this, can lead to illness. But what will happen is the weak individuals will get ill and potentially die. But pneumonia is a reality, especially with impala, if they get wet this time of year. This is supposed to be cold and dry. But what we will see with rain like this is we will see potentially small, if there's enough rain that is, small wild flowers might even bloom, might germinate. Some of these seasonal flowers that are sitting in seed form. There might be a slight green flush to some of the grass, which will be a benefit to many of the animals. And a lot of those small little mud wallows that we find around might at least get a little bit of moisture in there. Enough anyway to make them muddy and make the elephants, the buffalo and warthog, as well as rhino, very happy once again. Indigo Girl, yes, we've had a great year for rain, and this will definitely assist in the greenery. I don't think this kind of rain will influence the water table at all. This very soft sort of rain, it's just been incessantly soft. It cuts in at an angle, and it's the problem with this kind of rain, it gets into our gear. But this kind of rain, nice and soft, is what really filters into the grass layer and benefits the very high or the top level of vegetation, which is wildflowers, forbs, and grasses. There won't be much runoff. It'll all just be seeped into the soil. When we have rain like this for 2-3 days in the summer months, it is the best for the vegetation. And once the sun comes out, I'm sure the birds are going to be very excited. They're going to wash themselves on all the leaves. No animal will need to go and drink today. They just have to lick the vegetation. So checking water points today is going to be not as necessary as normal. Although I've never really noticed a predator licking the vegetation off the grass. We're hoping to just find a nice established sighting where we can put our bottom into the wind and then not have to drive into this eye-cutting rain. They are such pretty antelope, aren't they, Impala? Jeremy, we should feel sorry for them. Shame, poor fellows, don't have anywhere to go in the rain. But it's a question we get asked all the time, especially by kids, is where do the animals sleep? And, well, they sleep just right here, right where they are. See how jumpy they are. Something has walked past here within the last 45 minutes that's got these impala on edge. I'm just going to keep having a look. Tracking, we might be able to see some tracks, because if an animal walks in this, we will see the muddy tracks, but it's very hard to judge freshness in the mud. Mud tracks can remain for quite some time, looking quite optimum. Excuse me. The wind is coming from the left, and they're all staring towards the right. Let's go see what it is that they might have seen. Okay, well, great. It sounds like Pryden's has got the sun coming out, so let's go over to Taylor to have a look.
We're trying desperately to warm up. Oh, who's growling? Boys are not happy with one another. Sorry, I can just hear some unhappy sounds coming from the lions. I think somebody sat on somebody. I think the male that with the smooth ears has now sat on his brother. There we go. You can see how sore his left paw is. I don't think he meant to do that. But of course, animals don't hide their emotions. Definitely not lions and wild animals in particular. If you do something that I don't like, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to show you my teeth. I'm going to growl. I'm going to put my ears back. Now he's basically saying, move over. The other male doesn't seem to be, not perturbed one little bit. And that's very typical of lions. They've got no idea of personal space, and they're constantly lying on one another, especially when it's cold. That's how you keep warm, to cuddle up, to snuggle. And, of course, that also helps reassure the bond, to say, yes, I enjoy your company, thank you. That's quite a nice shot of them together. It'd be great if we got some more questions from all of the children from all over the world, so please send them on through. Remember, kidssquestions@wildearth.tv. We're waiting for you. I'm sitting here ready, hoping that you'll ask me some questions about lions, about vultures, about anything really. And then, of course, for the rest of you, please keep hashtagging WildEarth. We will be with you shortly. But, Gert, should we have a look at that vultures again? I think so. Sorry, it was just very exciting. We did want to talk to you about the vultures, but then the lions started making noise, of course. Attention-seeking cats. But here we have two white-backed vultures perched in a marula tree. You can hear the others squawking and squabbling. Like I say, the patience is growing very thin amongst these feathered creatures. They're sitting on top of one another, running out of branches to perch on, which also means, just like what's happened with the lions, that they end up landing on top of one another. So you can't really see the white back on the white-backed vultures right now because it's sort of beneath the feathers and between the two wings, but if they do take off, they'll expose that nice white patch. And this is the most common species of vulture that we see in this region, but I've seen 3 different species this morning, which is exciting. So we've got the white-backed, we've got the hooded vultures, which I think you saw briefly fly across the screen. I don't know if Gert's going to be able to find one. They're hiding. There we go. The bottom right one is a hooded vulture, more smaller species, and then the leopard-faced has joined us. So, Ray, this is typically what you'll see with vultures, is they'll sit perched in a tree like this with a predator down below and a carcass that they're desperately waiting to get to. Vultures have got incredibly stubby toes, and they don't really have the foot structure that would allow them to hunt like other birds of prey. So they're also not great flyers in the sense that they're agile. They are good flyers, but there's going to be no acrobatics for them. You know, they fly over 30,000 feet in the air and ride the thermals and glide most of the time. They do very little wing flapping, as it's not, or that burns quite a bit of calories and energy, and they need to conserve these types of things. So they aren't able to really hunt for themselves. But there have been some recordings of vultures hunting. I think it's the Cape vulture that occasionally has done so. But like I said, if you look at their feet, it's a bit difficult now because they're not actually. Sorry to be a pain. I know you've pulled a wide shot, but can we try and have a look at a close-up of those vultures that are sitting on that oak branch on the marula? I just want to see how good of an opportunity. Okay, so you can see their feet there. So they've got these obviously claws, but they're not super sharp. You've seen what their beaks look like. They're very good for tearing into flesh. But in terms of being able to hold prey and carry it to an area, that's not really going to work very well. And also, I think that their prey would hear them flying down towards them. They're not silent flyers. They make a whistling sound when they sort of glide on down, or if they're diving out of the sky down to the ground. So, no, not equipped for hunting at all. Even though they've got long necks, you might think, why can't they fish? But they don't have a spring-loaded neck like any of the heron species or the egrets that are particularly good fishing birds. But those long necks are designed to get into all sorts of cavities within the carcasses. So this is what they sort of wait for. But at this time of the year, it's fairly easy for them to find food because it is dry season. This is when the predators start to thrive. And vultures are important as the part of the cleanup crew. I mean, if we just had carcasses around all the time, it would be a bit of a disaster. There'd be so much bacteria, so many diseases that are thriving. But what is going on? Have we got some vulture mating happening there? Oh, how exciting. Yeah, look at that. Bit awkward on a tree. It is coming into vulture breeding season. We've already seen a couple scattered and up on nests. Yep, definitely mating. Right. Thank you very much for that. Now it's gone all quiet. Okay. Nice. Very cool to see those. Not always that often that you get to see vultures mating. So yeah. Ruffled his feathers a little bit. We'll have to go back and visit that vulture's nest, though, at some point and see if we can see a chick's head popping out. That's quite far to the east, so we won't be going there this morning. Yeah, talk about linking. Ah, goodness. So, yeah, so you can see, I actually can't even tell you how many vultures are here, but there's more than 30, at least. Those are just counting the ones that I can see on the tree. But when we arrived at Leopard Dam, there was a whole bunch scattered out in those trees. Oh, we've got a second round of mating happening. Is it a different bird mating with that female now? Yeah. Goodness gracious. There was all sorts of action. Here you can see the hooded vulture nicely on the right-hand side. Oh my goodness, Kat, look, it's all happening. We've got squawks coming from every tree. We don't know where to look. But yes, like I said, coming into vulture breeding season, obviously. Ah, goodness gracious. I'm kind of envious that I can't climb to the top of one of the marulas to get the sun, because I'm being shaded by velvet-leafed corkwood at the moment. And I've decided that they are my least favorite tree, because the fruit doesn't taste very nice. It made me feel sick, so I won't be eating that ever again. Maybe I'm just overly sensitive. Also, the fruit wasn't ripe, so I suppose that was my own fault. Don't eat unripe fruit from a tree. Don't be me. Yes. Sometimes I don't make the greatest decisions. But somebody that does make really good decisions and is as patient as these vultures is Dylan. The sun has risen. Let's go over to Tswalu.
Good morning, everyone. It's amazing to have you all with us at beautiful Tswalu Kalahari. Yes, this land is just magnificent. As always, old Jandre on camera. Yeah, let's just go out and explore here again. I've got no plan this morning, nothing whatsoever. We're just going to amble around, see what we can see. We had such a, those of you who were with us yesterday, we had such an amazing sightings yesterday afternoon that I'm kind of scratching my head, what should I do now? It was like, but yeah, that pangolin and those aardvark, ended up seeing 2 aardvark, were just off the charts amazing. So yeah, so we're just going to bumble around this morning. We're giving the meerkats a skip. We've got the habituators on them, just to keep tabs of where they're going and that. Remember, we had them at that one smaller burrow, which was very unusual, we thought. Then yeah, let's see what happens. The habituators will be on them and see if they can track them down this morning, and then yeah, we can look at it again perhaps tomorrow. But yeah, just look at this amazing landscape that we're in, and yeah, and it's all ours, ours to go and explore. So those of you who are with us, it is the end of the kids session. Jean and I keep missing the kids session. I think someone's got something against us. It's actually just the light. But yeah, so welcome to all viewers, and you know, WildEarth hashtag, you know, use that. Please feel free to ask us any questions. If you've got any comments, yeah, it'll be great to hear from you. I love getting feedback in terms of, you know, what we're talking about and that as well. So please feel very, very welcome to pick our brains and just, yeah, enjoy it, join us and have fun. You know, this is what we're here for, is to learn together. It's not a one-sided thing, this. So yeah. Morning, Jean-Ray. Wave at everyone. He's waving at everyone. It's interesting this morning in terms of the weather pattern. Does he just ask if we maybe have a porcupine in our scope? I would love to show you a porcupine. In winter, like with these colder temperatures that we got now, it's not impossible that you can get them out in daylight hours. So obviously, as Jean-Ray and I are moving around, we'll definitely keep our eyes open. We do have, so that'll be porcupines. I have one exceptional species that I want to try find, but that is going to be over the coming weeks. That's not something I can go out and say, okay, well, we're going to go find and we're going to get some nice shots. It'll be an exception. If we can get it, for me personally, it'll be a huge coup if we can get it. Ah, look, there's a big hartebeest bull on top of that dune up there. I think it's a hartebeest. Yeah, it is, yeah. You got in there, Jean-Ray? That was Jean-Ray's spotting, not mine. Yeah, credit where credit's due. But what a backdrop, eh? Yes, this is just magnificent, eh? And it never gets old, eh? You know, it doesn't matter how many times you come out into this environment, it's just the best every single morning. Well, we're absorbing this gorgeous landscape. I think head over to Jared in Pinda and see what they've got for you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to and Beyond Pinda Private Game Reserve. My name is Jared, and we've got Marcel behind the camera today. And we've been missing for the last hour or so because it has been raining down here in KwaZulu-Natal. And we've managed to just take a quick gap to head out and see what we can find. It has stopped raining for about 10 minutes now. And we have some signs of elephants over here. Now, there's two very interesting things that I want to show you, actually three. So this was before the rain, so we know that it's not fresh. One of the advantages of having rain is that we can tell whether the tracks are very, very fresh or not. So like I said, it rained about 10 minutes ago, or sorry, about an hour ago it stopped. And so anything between then and now, if it's on top of the rain, we know it's very fresh. We've got some elephant dung here of quite a big elephant bull. I can see over here where the elephant's been scraping, but the rain all on top of that. So I expect that this is from yesterday. Look on the ground. Now, I'm sure that you all know that elephants eat grass, leaves, branches, roots, but there's something very interesting that the elephants eat, particularly here on Pinda, and they absolutely love it. And we call it elephant pudding. Now, you'll see over here, it's a vine or a creeper that grows from the ground up into the tree, and if an elephant walks past an elephant pudding, it cannot resist but feed on it. And you can see over here, all over the place, the elephants have been feeding. And it's a bit of a succulent. I'm just going to come and bring it a little bit closer. So it isn't necessarily a succulent itself, but its leaf is very succulent-like. And have a look when I break it open. So now you can start to see why I say it's a little bit like a succulent. So lots of nutrients, lots of moisture inside there. And you can eat it. I eat it. It has a little bit of a sour taste. But Marcel doesn't know about an elephant pudding, so I'm going to give him one as well. And let's see what he thinks. But yes, Marcel is a little bit crunchy, but it is a little bit sour. So if you don't like sour, it's not the greatest plant to eat. Almost like a clover. But Marcel says almost like a clover. Don't really eat those. But yeah, so we've got some signs that elephants, to at least in the last 24 hours, I believe. So we're going to carry on driving around. Yesterday we found 2 male cheetahs not too far from where we are here. And so I think in this area we're going to keep looking for either this elephant or this cheetah. One of the tracking vehicles who is out has found some tracks of the 2 south male cheetahs creatures. Let's head over to Steve.
Thanks, Jared. Welcome back, everybody. We are now on the Simbambili Private Game Reserve. We went and just had a look at the one pan I've been looking at quite regularly, and no sign of any lion tracks, but we found a very wet and uncomfortable looking brown snake eagle. Birds of prey and smaller birds, when you see them sitting on a branch like that, you will generally find them facing into the wind, because if you've ever seen a weather gauge on your roof or whatever it might be, it always blows in the direction of the wind. That's because of the wind is pushing it, and the easiest way is for it to go with the wind. And so birds face into the wind so that they find it easy to perch. If you stand side onto the wind, it's just going to be blowing you sideways the whole time, and these birds haven't evolved to hold on like that. Also, when they take off, they just have to jump, and the wind will pick them up like a kite and throw them into the sky. You can see even with a very gentle breeze, the bird is trying to hold on. It's looking very uncomfortable. Shame. You can see under the wing how white it is there. Sorry, it looks vicious. It is vicious. These snake eagles, the brown snake eagles anyway, they hunt primarily from perches like this, where they'll sit and wait for something to move along the ground. Obviously, the snakes are high up on their diet, but they also feed on small rodents. Monitor lizards if possible. But snakes are top on the list. But the wind has blown the feathers on his head all over the place. He's having a very bad hair day. And there's nothing for it, everybody, in this kind of weather. These birds just have to get wet, and they hope that they've preened themselves sufficiently a few days or so before so that they don't get too waterlogged. But the rain makes flying difficult. Lottie, I think it's primarily to do with the fact that the wind's catching him at a bit of an angle, and he's trying to stay in one place. It's got a perch on a piece of wood there that's a little bit to the side, so the wind's catching him just from the side. So I think he's balancing, or she is balancing with the wind, rather than trying to dry. There's no drying happening right now. It's still raining. I think it's just hungry. He realizes that if it stands up high there, it might find something to eat. And there's no better way to warm oneself than with a warm meal in the belly. Look at the birds there. That white-crested helmet shrikes bombing him. So everyone, you might hear some crinkling sounds. I'm wearing a wet weather jacket of sorts. It's more of a plastic poncho. And unfortunately, it's still on, and you might be hearing it in my microphone. I do apologize, but I need to stay dry. Otherwise, I might get sick. We don't want that, do we? No. I'm not eating any sweets, everybody, I promise. Can't speak for Darby, though. He's looking very upset, isn't he? You know when someone's had enough and they put their hands down into fists, like, oh, I've had enough. You can actually see the yellow eye now. Can you see that? Very characteristic of snake eagles. Bright yellowish eye and barring on the tail. Sure, he's looking like a gangster. See those sharply taloned feet high up off the ground in a dead tree. Very good. Okay, well, from our feisty looking bird, let's send you over to some cats acting the same way.
Well, they were being very feisty and sassy. The young lass on the left got a bit of a hiding now. You can see she's not impressed because, okay, now bear with me because I'm about to give you another dad joke. But Gert has given the male lion with an injury a name and has called him the Olympian. I thought that was quite funny this morning. Obviously, we're just joking. That's not really his name, but we thought it was quite funny because he's such a champion and he's fit and healthy, but he's got a bit of a limp. But anyways, but she got a paw to the face for feeding on the carcass. And it's interesting. He seems to be a lot more dominant than the other male. He doesn't tolerate that young lioness at all, whereas the male on the left is quite happy to feed peacefully on the carcass together with their faces right next to one another. But the boy on the right is a greedy guts, so that's fine. You can eat the scraps all by yourself and be Nigel no friends. He's just hiding behind the carcass there. But if I had a sore paw, 2 sore paws, I'd also be a bit of a grumpy, sort of horrible lion. He's not a horrible lion though, but you know. And it's miserable weather and all the things. At least he's not hungry. That we can say with absolute certainty. But I'm just looking around. There's so many vultures on the floors that I didn't even see earlier. So come on, jump on in. Although that other male lion is now on vulture chasing duty. He has charged around a little bit and stirred the vultures up. And a couple of them went up onto the trees, but they keep making their way lower down onto the branches and then just down on the ground. I think they're hoping to find a little scrap or two on the ground. However, I think that it's going to not be much for them to find. Young Emily, who's only 6 years old, you've inquired about vultures and why some of them have feathers on their necks and others don't. So if you look at these vultures, so we've got white-backed vultures here. They've got the smallest feathers on their necks. You can see they don't have those lovely big feathers that will keep them nice and warm, or their primary feathers, which are the ones that they use for flying. They don't have those on their heads. And the reason why vultures don't have the feathers on their necks and why they draw them in on cold days like this is because if they had all those feathers, they would get so dirty and it'd be very difficult for them to keep clean. And then you'd have all types of bacteria and all sorts of nasty things living in those feathers. So they obviously stick those long necks into carcasses. They don't really want to get their wings and things like that full of guts and rotten flesh. So by just having no feathers on your neck, I think it's quite nice. It's very handy. But they're not completely sort of naked. There are little tiny feathers there that you can see. But they're very easy to keep clean. There you go. You can see. Sort of halfway down their neck, those feathers get a little bit longer. But when they do sleep in the tops of trees, I'm sure if we came here last night and we shone a spotlight across the trees very quickly, it would have looked like we had a bunch of headless birds, because they'll even tuck their heads underneath their wings to help keep nice and warm. It must be cold, hey? It must be chilly. They do look like they need a scarf to just wrap around, or a sock to put over their head to keep their necks warm. But it is exceptionally cold today. This is not a typical winter in the Lowveld. Normally we have really nice days. Winter's actually some of my favorite times of the year here. It does get cold, but the days warm up, You're still catching a tan, walking around in shorts and a t-shirt, and you just have to put a jersey on when the sun goes down. Sometimes a scarf and gloves. And today, 4 jackets, beanie. But if you're like me, you're still walking around in shorts. So I suppose I'm like the vulture, but it's just switched around. My neck is covered, but my legs are exposed. And they've got quite a few long feathers there to keep their legs nice and warm. Here we go. You can see that vulture on top, just checking out its flying feathers. You can see how much longer they are. And they're quite stiff as well, so that every time they flap their wings, they can make sure that they are able to fly higher and higher. It's quite bizarre to me that we've been sitting here with the sun out and exposed on all of us, where it is just rising in Swalo. Let's go and see how beautiful it is.
Yeah, so we just had this magnificent sunrise. As it's magnificent every morning. I say it like it was just this morning, but it's every morning it's like that. But what's incredibly interesting is that to see the extent of this front that's been moving over the eastern side of the country and actually pushing right up to where we are. You know, our colleagues down in the Lowveld, they were actually having rain yesterday afternoon and this morning. And you can see that it's kind of like fading now, but, you know, right across to the left, just, you know, all the way from where the sun is going across to the left, there's a cloud bank that's slowly pushing in this way. And the wind has switched direction yesterday, almost 180 degrees. So now it's pushing from a high into a low pressure system, and that's what's bringing those clouds in over there. So it'll be interesting to see how it develops over the course of the next couple of hours. I don't think there's going to be any impact whatsoever on our game drives or anything in that. Yeah, in fact, I love it out here if we do get rain. I was just saying to Jandre, one thing you learn about living in the Kalahari is you will never, ever, 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 ever complain about rain again. Stay here long enough and you'll appreciate every single last drop that falls. Doesn't matter how cold it is, or how heavy or how light it is. If you get rain, you're very, very grateful for it. So I just want to show you something, and I'm not going to give the game away. I'm not, because this is going to take weeks, I think, to get right. But Jandre, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it here. So the angle for Jandre is not great over here. But if you can see, I'm going to step on that side so I'm out the way. You know, going from under this bush here, you got this little path with multiple little footprints in and out here. And that is going to be one of our big missions over the coming weeks. But like I say, you need to have a lot of patience. It is, I think if we get it in a short space of time, it will be exceptionally lucky. So I think it's going to be a couple of weeks. But I'm not going to give the game away. So this is going to be a long-term goal of ours. And yeah, I hope we can see it. But I just want to show you someone else that's been joining us for a while. And she hasn't, there you go. You know, looking a little bit slightly the worse for wear, but still good. So she's still on all our drives, hasn't abandoned us yet. Given a little beanie so she stays warm. She's probably aging better than I am at the moment. Anyway, we're gonna carry. I don't know why you're laughing, Jandre. You're not far behind me. Anyway, we're gonna carry on and see. But so these little tracks that I'm showing you now, I can't tell you what they are. It's going to be a very tricky one to find, but so Robin and Francesca have just asked, aren't we scared being out in the open? Like I said, absolutely no ways, not a single day ever. There's no, these environments are, it's like any place, you know, if you understand your environment, and you learn about it, you've got absolutely nothing to worry about, nothing to fear. I mean, it's, we got snakes here, but you understand the behavior, you know what they are, you know what to do, that kind of stuff. So it's not, and lions and whatever else, there's really nothing to worry about. It's actually, in fact, people think, well, what if you're out here by yourself? Or like, don't worry, animals do their best to avoid people most of the time, and that's why you've got to go to parks and you've actually got to start looking for things, because otherwise they would just be flopping down waiting for you. Sometimes it's like that, but I mean, animals don't go out of their way to attack people, catch people, that kind of thing. And cases that you do get like that are certainly a lot less common these days, and there's normally very, very, very good reasons for that. But yeah, no, I'm totally comfortable in that, and and it's fun. Well, while we're enjoying this, what is nothing short of glorious scenery, I think head over to Trishala, and she has some buffalo.
I am enjoying my buffalo. I don't think the buffalo are enjoying me too much. Everybody out here is just a little bit uncomfortable, including ourselves. But our buffalo, as well as some kudu that we saw, the impalas, the wildebeest, are all a little bit uncomfortable today. So they're moving away from us pretty quickly. But there is, believe it or not, a whole herd around. I'm just hoping that they'll walk out onto the road so that we can get a good look at them. Oh, peeky, right at the end, someone's popped out onto the road. Just in the corner there. Come this way, people want to see you. Wow, I actually thought it was going to listen to me for that moment. It's quite a nice large herd. Lots of them have grass in their mouths, which is just perfect because I feel quite happy for them that the grass is not only juicy, but with bits of water on it too. I'm sure that makes them feel good. Exactly, it's not just chips, it's chips with some sauce. And in turn, if the lions get a buffalo sometime today, oh, everybody's popped out to have a look at me, it would also be like a buffalo with sauce, instead of just a straightforward buff. I love how they've all come out to say hello. Oh, hello, sweetness. Butterfly, you say you love a baby buff. A baby buff has a very cute face. Very, very cute. There's some really nice large males in this herd. In fact, that's how I found the herd. I saw 3 of the large males on the other side, and then I see, across a little bit more north of me, there was the rest of the herd, so we drove around. Now, those large males will get to about 800 kgs, so they're going to get nice and big. I would say that the males I saw were around that size. Oh, we have a one-horner. Ooh, that must have been painful. It's a unibuff. similar to a unicorn, but this variety is only found in South Africa. Good thing I don't have. Did you hear that? See, we find all sorts of creatures here. Even a mythical buffalo. Really awesome. Well, guys, if you enjoy watching our safaris, even when it's rainy like this, and all the animals look a little bit miserable, but it's all part of nature and part of life, and you get to see all those facets through us, please do go to our search and help us to continue to bring you all these different parts of Africa and all the wonderful and weird animals. I'm going to see if I can edge a little bit forward so we can get the silver cluster leaf out of the shot. And, oh. Actually, maybe not. There's a bit of an unhappy buff next to me on the left. A little bit nervous. Not actually looking at me, but a little bit nervous. I don't want to startle him. So let's see what we can do to get a better view, but I'm going to send you over to Taylor. She has some very brave vultures.
Yes, look at this scene that we do have. We have a lioness, and then we've got that very cheeky hooded vultures trying to make their move. I think that they must be the most daring of the vultures. But they are often the first ones to arrive with the batelier and the tawny eagles. And they normally sit around waiting for the other vultures to come, as I'm sure you all know by now. That looked like a bit of lion dung. Delicious. So, just going back to that question we had earlier about why do some vultures have feathers on their necks and others don't. I mean, you can see that they all have some kind of feathers on their heads at some point. But I think with hooded vultures, they typically have less on their necks, and when you see them at a carcass, they're always digging in the eye socket. They're feeding near the rear end of whatever animal it may be, because they don't have very big robust beaks, and they need to stick their heads into crevices and sort of try and find their way into a carcass without having to tear it open, unlike what the white-backed, the white-headed, and the lapid-fade vultures can do, how they can tear into that tough hide. So yeah, so they're quite cheeky, and they're always looking for scraps, and like we know that they love to eat lion feces. It's their favorite thing. Something else that's quite interesting, and it always fascinates me, is just how vultures are able to feast on these putrid carcasses and never get sick. Okay, obviously if it's a poisoned carcass, different story. Vultures unfortunately die from these poisonings. However, these ones are thriving, as you can see. So, should we talk about the first thing? Look how white their legs are. Now, you'd think with having exposed feet like that, with no feathers all the way down, with all the vulture species, that they'd be able to get bacteria straight through their skin. But that doesn't seem to be the case, and you'll typically see it quite a bit where not just vultures, but also things like marabou storks will defecate on their legs. And some scientists have said that perhaps the uric acid, so it's a process known as urohydrosis, which is typically used to cool birds down by defecating on their legs like that, that white will reflect the sunlight. But they think that the uric acid inside the feces that they're defecating onto themselves must be able to combat some of that bacteria and kill it. So that's fascinating. That's just one theory, of course. And they've got such a low pH sort of acidity in their stomachs that it kills everything, which I also think is quite amazing. Imagine being able to do that, feasting on something that's got tuberculosis or foot and mouth disease or whatever other disease-ridden animals that they might eat and just not be bothered by it. Fascinating. Now, Luke, yes, you're shame. Vultures do have a really bad rep. They are, like I said, they're highly important into the ecosystem. They're just as important as termites are to the ecosystem, so we mustn't forget about them. Now, we do have 2 hooded vultures that we're looking at. In case you're wondering why do they look slightly different, the vulture on the right-hand side is a juvenile, so that's not an adult just yet. And I'm starting to wonder if the hooded vulture's breeding season is slightly earlier than the white-backed and the leopard face, because we've been seeing lots of juvenile brown hooded vultures fluttering about. There are actually quite a few of them with the adults. You see, being shown the ropes on how to feed on a carcass, where to look for lion feces, and how to, of course, be sneaky, because I think a very important part of being a vulture is trying to be sneaky and sneak up and around to get a piece of the carcass before everybody else gets there. Otherwise, if you come on late, you're in a bit of trouble. But it's all really nice. It's actually got colder. It's definitely much colder than we started this morning. Some of the vultures have gone back to bed. There were a few earlier that have tucked their necks back underneath their wings, not happy with the day. But I think we might carry on from this carcass. We'll give it a couple more minutes and see if any action develops. Otherwise, off you go across to a scene where, well, Steve is surrounding himself with water.
Thanks, Taylor. Yes, well, we found one of the animals that seems to love the rainfall. Hippopotamuses. They obviously live in water. Here the brown-headed parrots fly over. Yeah, that very squeaky, rusty gate-like sound. The rain seems to be slowly abating. It's all still very drenched around. 2 animals that I seem to think love the water. Obviously hippos live in water, and then elephants. Elephants love the rain. They seem to get very excited in the rain. Everybody else seems to get quite miserable. Bearing in mind that the rainfall makes everything damp. The grass everywhere, the animals' fur. So in high rainfall, I often find our cats curling up underneath the bush and just sort of covering their nose, or trying to curl up into the smallest ball possible, just waiting it out. And that is the life of a hippo, waiting things out. We are at Simbambili watering hole now. Jeff, I suppose that's the winning question, isn't it? If we knew. Our skin gets wrinkles because we're not supposed to be in it all the time. But hippos are in it all the time, so their skin's different. So that's why they don't get wrinkly. I don't really know. I mean, hippos are in the water for hours, all day long, and they don't get wrinkly skin. I suppose that's one of those things. If you live in the water, you've evolved not to get wrinkly skin. Otherwise, that would just be weird, wouldn't it? I think we're probably the only ones who get wrinkly skin. He's had enough now. He's under the water. Now he's pretending to be a rock. We're playing a game charades now. The hippo's doing a rock. I can only guess a rock. Maybe he's doing a humpback whale. There we go. You see, so having the eyes, the ears, and the nose on the same level means that the hippo can keep most of its body submerged while still being able to see, breathe, and hear. He was showing us his back there to show how unwrinkly his skin is. And I say he because he's on his own in this dam. Daniel, hippos are the best at charades, especially when it comes to slow-moving large objects in the water. They're very good at those. But then there's the ones when they use hand signals, not very good, I've noticed. I jest, everybody. I've never played a game of charades with hippos before. some of you are probably wondering. But we have stopped at a nice scenic viewpoint, and Davy and I had a quick coffee, which is one of the highlights of being on game drives, especially in the wet weather. That moment when you stop, stretch your legs, have a nice cup of coffee, socialize a bit, or just sit quietly on the side and just listen. Yeah, the blacksmith lapwing on the opposite bank. Many of the South Africans out there would probably understand coffee met itzy in the early morning. Not that that's what Davy and I have done this morning, but lovely little Amarula coffee or something, Davy, hey? Those of you who've never had Amarula cream, very, very nice liqueur. It goes wonderfully well with coffee, especially in the morning when you're feeling a little bit. Goes well with hot chocolate too. When on game drive, most people are on holiday. Lions Aid, my mum wants to know who's got the best waterproofing. Wow. Well, birds have to apply waterproof, yes. Without the preen oil, they don't have waterproofing. We've all heard the term like water off a duck's back. It's exactly like that. The purpose of preen oil is to keep those feathers dry. Have you ever gone and washed a down jacket or feather pillow? It takes an enormous amount of time to dry, so they've got to keep the water out. Obviously, animals like hippos and frogs and reptiles are all very well adapted for the water, but furry animals, there's no waterproofing at all. It doesn't get cold enough here for animals to have evolved a sort of thick polar bear-like fur that stays insulated, waterproofed, or wolves as well. A really thick coat somehow stays dry deep inside. We've got seasonal changes here, but they don't get to terrifyingly cold temperatures. It's the heat that animals have to evolve to out here. Elephants with their big ears, the ability to mud wallow. Heat loss is a very important adaptation. And that's what limits animals from moving from these warm savannas into the very hot, dry Kalahari-like situations where Dylan is. Kalahari gets extremely cold in the winter and at night, and then the days can change enormously. That's why a majority of the animals there have evolved to live in subterranean burrows or to nests elevated with insulation. Desert-adapted animals are remarkable. Not just animals, but plants as well. It's about the heat. Heat generation or heat removal, as well as water loss. So, well, I love talking about the deserts, and the one desert we get in South Africa is the Kalahari. So let's send you back over to them.
These arid environments or semi-arid environments are just absolutely incredible. And some of our colleagues I know down have been chatting about these environments and adaptations to animals, and it is an incredibly harsh and tough environment. But if you look at it on the face of it, any environment on the planet has its challenges. If you take surviving in a rainforest is not easier than surviving in a desert. You know, animals in a desert are adapted to surviving in a desert. That's why they live there. Animals that are surviving in a rainforest are adapted to surviving in a rainforest. That's why they're there. So it's every single environment, doesn't matter where it is can be challenging in its own way. So we're just popping into these little waterholes. We're just going to come around here and see if we've got anything here. There's a lot of bird activity here. We might spend a couple of minutes here, just so Jean-Andre can get his bird list going again, get some more ticks on it, because he's been hounding me that he's not seeing enough new birds for his list. Yeah, Jean-Andre is going to be very relieved now, because he's like, Dylan, I need more birds. I'm just going to come around here at a bit of an angle here, and then we can also look at, I'll just do a quick walk around here, just see if there's any obvious sorry, Chris has just asked, is winter a more, I didn't get the whole question there. Active period. Yeah, so, no, okay. Yeah, okay, so Chris, that's a good question. Is winter a more active time for animals? Yes and no. So, I mean, animals have to maintain their daily rhythms, their circadian rhythms, regardless of the time of year. And obviously there's different peaks of activity depending on temperature. Now, so much of what animals do, well, everything that animals do, doesn't matter what it is, it's about survival. And if you translate that into how they do that, it's about energy. It boils down to energy. And energy loss and energy gain, those are the key things. So in this wind is picked up, you can see all the ripples on the water, how this wind is picked up. It's a cold wind, it's a biting wind. I mean, that saps energy from any organism. So we say, yeah, well, winter it's cooler so the animals can be more active, but it can get like to the point where it's not, doesn't benefit those animals to be active, and then they'll go underground or they'll shelter in thick bush and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it's difficult to say, yeah, animals will be more active in winter. They're active right through the year, but they will just change the times of day that they become active. In summer, when our daytime temperatures can hit 40, 45 degrees here sometimes, then animals are more likely to be active going late afternoon, early mornings, and even going into the evenings. And our traditionally held, accepted thing of, you get diurnal animals, that's active during the day, and you get nocturnal animals active at night. And then there's like other things like crepuscular, active at dawn and dusk. That's a different thing. But, those things can be challenged very, very strongly when you look at it in terms of energy loss and energy gain. And there are animals that are, there's no question they are nocturnal. 100%. That is their absolute niche. That's what they're designed for. And you look down in the low veld where our colleagues are working with those magic little animals, those bush babies or lesser galagos and greater or thick-tailed bush babies. They're nocturnal. That's what they're designed for. But so many things out here are very flexible in their work hours, and saying, well, okay, it is scorching hot, I'm not going to go out now, I'll go out later. Or the temperature's nice now, so I'll be foraging now. So it's not so much a winter-summer thing as they have to be managing their energy needs. And it's not a conscious decision. It's like, okay, well, I'm hungry, I need to go, but it's too hot now, okay, let me go a little bit later, kind of thing. So a lot of it's driven by temperature rather than time of the year. And because we don't have anything that hibernates out here, so it's not like, Arctic or Antarctic, you'll get things all, okay, I'm an Arctic fox, I'm going to go into hibernation, or a polar bear, or brown bears, grizzlies, those kind of things. And, I'll just go dig a hole in the snow and sleep it out kind of thing. We don't have those kind of extreme temperatures. So it's really, it's year-round work here. Just whoosh. I'm just going to make a quick walk around this. What else, see if there's anything of interest that we're going to follow up on. I think while I'm going to go down here, I'm just going to do a quick loop around, check what we got, and Jean-Andre is going to start ticking his list a little bit more. Sorry, what was that, Jean-Andre? No, he says he'll do it. I'm just, we can head over to Trishana and see what they got on that side.
I have not defrosted. I am making adjustments though, so I can begin to defrost, such as moving north. That way that the wind and the rain hits the back of the car. So that works a little bit better for us. So our buffalo have gone into that block between Shibamu and Philemon's cut line. And they're staying quite still in there. So maybe this afternoon they'll start to move even further north. And they're being quite noisy, so maybe the lions will hear them. And that will attract them onto the property. Do not run. It is a duiker. But I guess you guys knew that when I said do not run. Under arrest. Nope, that still didn't make it stop. No. The suspect has run off. I'm glad to see that there are a few more duikers. Because I think we went through a period where we didn't see many duiker at all. A couple months back. And I only realized I hadn't seen them in a while when I finally saw one, which was only about my last stint, like a month ago. And I thought, oh shame, where have they gone? I think after Tlalamba has, really depleted their population here at Djuma, they decided to move away for a little bit. Hi Tom, you were actually wondering a little bit about our Princess Tlalamba, if we've had any updates on her. None so far. The last time she was seen was the night that I found Tingana, 4 nights ago? I lose track of time when I'm here. All blurs into one big game drive. That evening she was at Vuyatela Pan. And that was the last update that we had on her. But I do hope to see her before my stint is over, which gives Tlalamba until Saturday to make an appearance. I mean, there's lots of things I would like before my stint is over. Tlalamba, Tandi's a little man. All of that would be awesome. But I'm glad that the cubs have come out. The hyena cubs. By the way, I did go to the den just to check it out, and as expected, there was not much happening. Sorry, I saw something move towards the bottom, and then the one leaf looked a little bit like a snake. It looked like that, but in fact it was just a leaf. And the wind. And my desperation to find some animals. So we can try the den this afternoon when it's a little bit warmer and not as wet, hopefully. Anyway, let me send you back over to Dylan, my guest for tonight's Fireside Chat.
So we have been seeing some good birds. It's mostly starlings and bulbuls. But what we've got, speaking of birds, we found something quite interesting here. Is a whole pile of feathers and a wing. So there's probably been falcons, probably Lanner falcons been hunting around this area. These birds will sit, they can sit 200, 300 meters away from a warthol in the distance. And then they'll just sit quietly on a tree, and then they will come in at breakneck speed, low level, between the trees and actually flush doves out. And not just doves, but yeah, that's the kind of prey size that they'll be going for. And whack them like that. In fact, at this particular waterhole, there's also a pair of gabar goshawks. It's these small little grey hawks, and they frequent these areas. So their hunting strategy is a little bit different. They're not nearly as fast as a lanner falcon. Those lanners coming from a long way away, super fast, swooping in. These goshawks will actually sit a lot closer, and they sit inside the canopy of these trees. They are incredibly adept at changing direction, following birds through vegetation and catching them like that. So when you see a pile of feathers like that, that may be what happened. And you can see all those beautiful little birds that Gendre's on there on the other side. Those bright yellow ones are yellow canaries. And then you've got that one with a light chest and a black head and a red eye. Those are red-eyed bulbuls. So at the moment, the most of the ones that you're seeing there are yellow canaries, red-eyed bulbuls. We've had a lot of starlings coming in as well. That one that just landed with that ring on its neck, that is called a Cape turtle dove. We've had some laughing doves coming in as well. So you see, it's exactly situations like this. You could get a sipiter, one of these little goshawks sitting close by, just waiting to come in. Oh, there's an amazing question. Jessica, who is 5, has asked, do birds have noses? And yes, birds do have noses. But very often their noses, well, most of them are actually not used for scent. There are very, very cool birds staying in South America that are actually able to use their nose to smell carcasses in dense vegetation. A couple of the birds of prey down there can do that, which is very, very interesting adaptation for their noses. Then you get things like a lot of your seabirds that actually are able to expel, a lot of salts in that through the nostrils, but certainly not noses in our traditional sense of knowing. Okay, well, you can sit there and sniff around. You got that kind of thing. So that's a lovely question. Yeah, but birds definitely, they do have nostrils. While we're speaking of birds and all these birds coming in and out and predators, I just want to show you something. Genre, at that big camel thorn there, Genre, at the base of it, there's a little dove sitting on the ground. I'm going to walk slowly towards it. I saw it just now. I have no idea what's wrong with this dove. I'm not going to go try and pick it up. The whole thing is not to interfere with nature. But that dove is very much alive. You got it, Genre? It's about 5 yards. Okay, there we go. So that is called a laughing dove, and this one is doing anything but laughing now. He's looking decidedly unhappy. I have no idea what's wrong with him. I'm not going to go interfere. I'm not going to pick it up. It could be that it was possibly injured in a attack by a goshawk or something. But it just shows a dove like that is now fair game for any little predator that might come along. It could be like a mongoose. We get these gorgeous little mongoose here, where our colleagues are working in the Lowveld. They got them as well, called slender mongoose. It looks almost like a weasel kind of animal. But these ones are lovely reddish brown color with a black tip to the tail. Oh, okay. Chandra, have a look at that bird on the far side of that next bush with a long tail. Have you got it? Hey, okay, so that is called a shaft-tailed whiter, Now that bird is so cool. I'm so glad, because going so late into the season now, most of those, that's the male. Okay, most of the males have already lost those long tail streamers. So that is really, really nice that we can actually get to see the male with that. Jeesh, that was a nice one. So that's a shaft-tailed whiter. Still lots of bulbuls. Lots of yellow canaries. That's actually the majority of the ones coming in and out now. So we'll go from this birding down to Jared in Pinda, who's doing some tracking there. But Phinda is an exceptionally good birding place as well, with a lot of interesting species. So head down that way and see what Jared's got for you.
So we've been able to find some tracks of the 2 south male cheetah that I mentioned we were looking for. Tracks, and then another set of tracks over there. So I just want to quickly show you how I know this is a cheetah track. So when I'm looking at this track, I'll notice 3 things. Okay, so here's one of the track, and here's the other. Now I've just got my tracking card to best explain to you exactly what I'm seeing. So the tracks are going in this direction, and we can tell that by just looking at the paw itself. So when I look at the paw, I can see the claw marks over there. So obviously the direction the claw marks are going in is the direction that the cheetah is going in. But something that's very different to a cheetah to all the other cats is sort of the size and shape of the track. So it's a very long track, as you can see. Now, we know that it's part of the sort of cat family because it's got 3 lobes as well. So that's how we know it's a cheetah. It's got 3 long but thin track. Now, there are some other tracks that people misidentify cheetah tracks for sometimes, one of them being hyena. And the reason why is hyenas do have claw marks. But you'll notice when you look at the back of the pad of the hyena, it's got 2 lobes as opposed to 3 lobes. And also the shape of the toes itself is very different on a hyena to a cheetah, where the hyena tracks, the toes look a little bit more like a kidney. Another animal that people get confused with is a wild dog. Now, the length and width of the track is actually very similar on a cheetah, much like that of a wild dog. It also has claws. But something you'll notice, the 2 main differences between them is wild dogs. But then have a look. If I put a cheetah, at least in the sand, this gap over here, we're in a wild dog track. It is a very defined track over there. So the question is are these tracks fresh or old? Now, I mentioned earlier that we had some rain over here, and I can see that the rain has fallen on top of this track. But they are still quite clear. So I think that these tracks are maybe from earlier this morning, but last night we had some heavy rain. And so if these cheetah had walked before the heavy rain, I think it would have washed the tracks away. Judging by how deep these tracks are in the sand, would also tell me that these cheetah walked here when the sand was wet as well. Now, while I'm here, I just want to quickly tell you one thing about some rhino dung. You'll see behind me, we've got some rhino dung. I'm just going to put my cards off to the side. And 4 days ago, we discussed black rhino dung. And one of the big differences between a black rhino dung and the dung of a white rhino is the material that's inside it. So black rhinos eat branches, so we had branches in our white rhinos eat grass. And so if you look in all this dung, you'll see that there's lots and lots of grass. Now, there's also a big color difference between black and white rhino dung. Black rhinos have very red dung because of the tannins that they feed on in the trees. White rhinos have a very dark dung. Now, you'll notice that this is quite a big dung pile. And so this is what we call a rhino midden. And a rhino midden is basically a way that a male rhino, because they're territorial, would be able to scent mark around their territory. And this is maybe years and years of rhinos coming here and busy defecating. Often what you'll find, there will be a little bit of a hole in the middle of the midden, and that's because the male will come, and as he defecates, he kicks back quite viciously, therefore digging a little bit into the ground, pushing the dung up against the wall. You also notice that there is some dung. I don't know, you might miss it from where I'm over here, but there's some dung to the side. So we've got some dung here, and we've got some dung here that's not in the rhino midden. Now, this could be one of 2 things. What will happen is that the females will come and defecate around the male's midden, just to let him know that he's there. Or it could be another male that's come through, he needs to defecate. He happens to be in the area of the midden. If he defecates away from the midden, that means he's not challenging the male. But if a new bull comes into the area, he's like, this is a good area. I've got a waterhole over there. I've got a waterhole over there. Nice open area full of grass. This is exactly the territory I want to have. Ooh, I see that there's a bull here. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to defecate over his dung. And so this is probably not just from one male. It could be majority from single male, and then females and young males and other males would be all around the side here. So these cheetah tracks do go through here and in that direction. The core of their territory is on the other side of the hill, so I'm a little bit worried that these cheetah have walked through and they're on the other side of the hill. We're not going to be able to get there today, so I think I'm going to leave these cheetah tracks and see what while we go have a look around. Let's head back over to Dylan to, I think he's got some birds.
The left. Yeah, so the birding here is getting really, really good. Very common species for us. You can see they're very nervous. That's not because of our presence. This is 100% very, very normal for the behavior at a waterhole like this. They'll come down because there is always this high risk of predation at a waterhole. So I've got a question for you again. When these doves come in to drink, you'll notice, again, we chatted about the other day, how they stick their mouths in the water. And one of the viewers, one of the guests was so kind, and they sent me a lovely breakdown of the adaptation of doves and pigeons for being able to suck water like that as opposed to scooping water. So they've obviously got physical adaptations for doing that. It's quite a detailed thing, but really, really interesting. My big question is still this. Why do they do it? The how is one side. The why is a completely different thing there. And I want to know, why have they got this adaptation? Why would they need to be siphoning water or sucking water like that, as opposed to scooping it like most other birds? There has to be some kind of evolutionary background to that, or some very, very good reason why that group of birds, the columbriforms, why they actually do that. So those the beautiful big grey ones are the doves that we're talking about, that they suck water. Yeah, and those are Cape turtle doves. And then we've got Chandra just mentioned to me, which one are you on now? Like, what are you on the doves, eh? Okay, Cape turtle doves, good one. Then there's a dove, if you pan slowly to the left, there's a dove with a very black chest. You won't miss it. It's like unmistakably black chest. If you just go along the edge of the water, right or left, it's a very small dove. It's just it's flown away. Cricket, that's a great point. You didn't know that doves could be so interesting. Doves are fascinating. The bird on the furthest right. Now, furthest right is that small dove with the black chest. Just pan slowly across to the right, you'll see it. That's a very pretty dove. So doves are, okay, just float away. Just stick on the starlings. There's those bluebirds with the doves. So doves are fascinating, and every single bird out here is fascinating. So where those bluebirds are with the starlings, those are Cape glossy starlings, and then you get those other birds to the right of it, immediately next to them. Those are also starlings. Those are called wattled starlings. Wattled starlings. You see where that white rump is? It flew away. There they go. And that's also an interesting bird in terms of its nesting. They are social nesting species as well. So they make these big sticky nests. Well, sticky, I mean they are made from sticks as opposed to being sticky. And so you get these big flocks of them going around, and they'll nest in these colonies. So you get them pairing up in their groups. So two will make a nest, another two will make a nest, but those nests are all located in a very, very small area. Okay, here is a gorgeous bird. Look right next to the car over here, Chandra. Look right close by over here on this green water side over here. Okay. There's yellow canaries there, and this one closest to us is a dove with a Namako dove alongside, and the next one is a golden-breasted bunting. But look at that bunting, eh? With the black and white facial markings. And that golden breast. Oh my word, look at that. Eh? GCM, that is stunning, eh? And then just behind it are all the yellow canaries that are in and out there. Wow, wow, wow. And that's the thing, you just got to sit. So, I mean, the temperature's cold, but these birds still have water requirements. They got to meet their daily water requirements. And even though it's cold, And I'm the worst for drinking water because I hardly touch the stuff. But, this wind is dehydrating any organism out here. And so these birds, even though it's super cold, they still need to be drinking water. And that's why it's always productive. Just sit quietly at a waterhole like this and you'll see some really, really good stuff coming in. What I enjoy about this as well is, again, it's that old thing of you never know what you're going to what's going to arrive. You can be looking at all the normal ones, yellow canaries, black-throated canaries, bunting starlings, doves coming in, and then just out of the blue you'll just get something that is rarely seen or hasn't been seen before, rocking up. So it's always worth, and especially in the summer months when we get these big storm fronts coming in, then you get birds like crazy things that get blown off. We've had a Sabine's gull that we've seen here. It's from the west coast of South Africa. It's probably almost 1,000 kilometers away from us. We've had a Sabine's gull rocking up at a waterhole there before. We've had pelicans, we've had flamingos, really Caspian plovers, some really, really weird things and very, very special things. We had a Makoa duck rocking up the other day. That was also a new one for the books. So, yes, for those kids. So the yellow ones there are the bright yellow ones are the males. Cobalt has just asked if we have any burrowing owls or any burrowing raptors, and no, we don't. Not to my knowledge. We've got a couple of birds, well, two that I'm aware of on Swallow that nest underground, which is your South African shell duck and then ant-eating chats. But yeah, no. And then in South Africa, there's a couple of others like grey-rumped swallows and blue swallows, things like that that'll nest underground. But the only two that I know of in Swallow, and neither of them are raptors in the traditional sense. Ant-eating chats will catch pretty much whatever they can find, but they're not regarded as raptors per se. I would love to see burrowing owls. Just one day when I'm big, maybe I'll get to see a burrowing owl in real life. There's lots of things I'd like to see. Yes. Geez, Trishala is pulling all the stops out this morning. She has a chameleon in daylight. So head over that way and then Jean will keep ticking his bird list here quickly. No, this is ridiculous.
It is my fave. And my poor fave is damp and cold and has not moved at all since I saw it last night. Well, I mean, it probably did move a little bit, but it must be so cold. It's a flat-necked chameleon, everybody. You can see the little droplets on the skin. Oh, I feel so sorry for you. So this guy is definitely firmly in this tree and has been for days now. I wonder if it may come time to name him soon. On one of the warmer days, I'll actually have to have a look on foot to make sure that we are certain of the sex. And then maybe we can think of some names. Or maybe we shouldn't, since last time that happened and we got attached, the bush of our lovely chameleon, Nonoka, was eaten by an elephant. So you let me know what you think. #WildEarth at the YouTube chat stream. Let me know if you think we should name it or we shouldn't get attached because of our experience in the past. I think out of all the flap-necked chameleons I have ever seen, in real life at least, this guy has got to be the largest. And females actually tend to be a little larger than the males. So perhaps this is a female. 30-35 centimeters with the tail is considered a pretty large individual. I'd say that this individual is about 30 centimeters. stretched out. Maybe even a tad more. Shame, all those water drops. Quite a few of you are all for naming this chameleon. Well, I'm going to have to take suggestions then. How about I collect some suggestions this afternoon? And then in the evening, once the sun goes down and we get a really good view of it. No, actually, let me first, when it's a little warmer maybe, or when it stops raining at least, go out on foot and be sure of the sex of it before we start naming. Because then things could be embarrassing for the chameleon. We don't want it to have to go to its chameleon friends named Betty when it is a male. So let's be sure first. But I guess get your names ready. That would be prudent. As much as they won't like the cold, they do like that it is a little bit moist, because the reptile's greatest challenge is being able to maintain moisture, not to desiccate, not to dry out. So moisture is welcome. It's just that accompanied by the cold, it's not terribly comfortable. That is very funny. Emma says we should call it Tree Shala. Why, thank you very much for that honor, but I'd prefer if it were named something a little more significant than Tree Shala, although I do get it and appreciate it, and it did make me burst out in laughter. It's like a dad joke, and the fact that I like chameleons all rolled into one name. Oh, hello, I. We see you, you see us. What do you think of that name? Not much. Thank you, Emma. Emma just asked me to send you over to Trish, but instead I think I'll send you over to Taylor, and you can ask her what she thinks of Tree Shala.
I've been laughing for the last 2 minutes now. I think it's hysterical. We've got a tree elephant at the moment. It's not as funny, but he's hiding behind the bushes. But I think we'll catch up with him, maybe at Ndlovu Dam, right at the eco-training camp. It is our friend Kumo, the big collared bull that we've been seeing so often, which is nice. Yeah, he's actually heading straight down there. We're not too far away. He's just taking a shortcut, and unfortunately we're bound by the pathways through the bush. But look at how miserable it is. You wouldn't believe, but the Drakensberg Mountains are actually behind all those clouds. If anyone was hiking today, good luck to you. You'd be blown straight off the top of the mountain. Look at it. I think that's what Ngala is experiencing as well. Okay, not in that direction, but behind us, it's pretty much the same all the way through the low veld this morning. Look at it. Very horrific weather. It's not great. It's not ideal. I'm not enjoying it. Okay, shall we catch up with our elephant friend? Yes, we will continue. So, it's been very cold. We've been driving very slowly, probably the slowest I've ever driven in my entire life, because I don't want to generate any more cool breezes. And you know what's so tempting is that we're going to be sitting right outside camp. So if any of the students have not gone out on safari this morning and would like to bring Kat and I a cup of coffee, I wouldn't say no. No, I'm joking. I don't think anyone's watching. But I just thought, let me just put that hint on out there, because that would be quite nice. Okay, we're going to jump onto this road here, and I can see Kumo. He's walking. He's now crossed and I think he's on the road. We'll beat him to it. What we were going to do is check the dam to see if there's anything happening here. Head south. I'll catch up with Alicia Keys, the big breeding herd that we sent. Although they might be on their way around, they normally come to the dam twice in the morning. And speaking of elephants, they've pushed an enormous knobthorn over. There is absolutely no way, it doesn't matter how much spinach I eat, I'm never going to be able to push this tree around. So we'll have to come out with a chainsaw and chop that up. I'm not going to hack away at it with a... I do have one in the vehicle, but I'm just going to do this and hide from the thorns. Please don't rip my jacket. I have no winter clothes. Squeeze through. Seems as though I'm nothing more than a dark screen. Right, off you go back across to Trishala and Trishala and see how they're doing.
We have left the chameleon who remains unnamed. Although I must say Trishala is hilarious and Taylor thinks so as well. But I heard a hyena whooping, and we've had a few problems in camp that I think is worth a mention. And if it causes embarrassment to the hyenas, then good, because they need to learn. They stole our kettle. Our kettle. For us to boil water in, to make coffee in the morning. Gone. Kettle lid on the floor. The base is still there, but the kettle gone. Who does that? What kind of sick person steals coffee away from people in the morning, snatching that necessity? Hyena does. In fact, I suspect it may be Swazi, since he's been all around. His little nose knocked on my door the other day. I told you about it, and I thought it was Steve coming to get something. Meanwhile, it was Swazi. Anyway, the kettle has been found. You are all knowing with me, or I'm glad to hear it. The kettle has been found, though. It's just a little beaten up. A little scratched. But it still works. It's the most important thing. So we were old school this morning and we boiled water on the stove top. So let's go interrogate this hyena. This road is going to be a little problematic because of the rain, but we'll just take it slow. Lions ate my mommy, saying I have visions of a hyena tea party. Do you know what I imagine? I imagine a hyena with that thing on its head, like that pot on its head, walking around, marching out like the king. That's what I imagine. Yet again, another one of Lauren's shoes is eaten. Yeah, they're having the time of their lives with our belongings at camp. Although, after all of that, hi Stefan, you'd like to know who has the strongest stomach acids, vultures or hyenas? I don't know, but I know that vulture stomach acid is about 1, pH 1. we are sitting between about 3, our stomach acid, so it's still pretty intense. But the strongest type of digestive fluids, I know you use the word strong, you use the word stomach acids, but stomach juices don't always have to be acids. They can be bases as well. And caterpillars have a pH of 11 for their gastric juices. That is pretty intense. That is way, way up there and possibly more intense than any other type of gastric juice we know. pH of 11, that's incredibly basic or alkaline. If I had to choose, I would say vultures, but I don't know the pH of hyena stomach acids. Possibly around this, definitely more acidic than our own. I was about to say something to you and now I've forgotten. Something about the hyenas we were chatting about. Oh, I came back from drive one of the evenings, and now because it's frigid when we get back and everyone just wants to warm up, we tend to kind of like dish up our dinner, eat super quick, and then go downstairs, or sometimes just go to our rooms because it's so cold without dinner. So this night I dished up very quickly. I came straight off drive, dished up, sat at the tables and started to eat. And I was joined by Swazi. He just walked into the camp, not even, so usually they'll just hang around at the periphery, not in the middle of the camp. The middle of the camp is where everybody lives, where the kitchen is, where our dining area is. He walked straight into the middle of the camp and just sat with me. And I had to shout at him with a mouthful, "Hey, you go away. You can't eat my food." I feel like that's what this buff is saying to me. Interesting. So the buffalo are all the way from Treehouse Dam all the way up here, almost towards the fire break in the north by Gallagher shortcut. So they're spread throughout Juma. Interesting. I say interesting because that leaves a lot of space for individuals to get left behind, to disperse a little bit further than the herd, and for lions to take advantage of that. But they are very, very aware with this weather. The cold also makes them uncomfortable, but that's a physical uncomfortability. It's wet. It's, like I said, it's cold, but the wind is a real problem. So with the cold, they can change their behavior to try and get themselves a little bit warmer, and then also their bodies can do some changes to get them warmer, like piloerection, where they'll erect the hairs and the fur around them that you would see in animals to make them look a little bit fluffier. They can do that to an extent, trap air to get themselves warmer. They can stay together in tight groups to keep themselves warmer, but that would be a behavioral change, not a physiological change. Can you hear that hyena? If we find this hyena, this is the hyena who's been taken from camp, because there's a very distinctive whoop. It sounds like an ambulance. There it is. I am going to move up and have a look because I want to know who it is. I have a feeling it's Swazi, but that's the hyena we hear around camp all the time. I that's how he goes. All right. Our beefy friends are a little close. Maybe we say hi quick. Oh. No, we can't. Let me see if we can do this. How's that, BK? Hello, mister. I have heard that the distance from point to point on a buffalo, or at least the, what do you call it, the record, but not verified, what I've heard people say, 1.5 meters between the point of horns. I think that that's quite impressive, if that is true. Anyway, let me send you over to Jared. He has some nyala, and I'm going to catch up with whoever this naughty hyena is.
Trish, you're right. So a dance of sorts, my kind of dance, not involving too much movement. It's got various different names, and one being lateral display. So myself, you can go on the male on the right. It looks like the male on the left actually just submitted. So I think we caught them a little bit too late, but the male on the right still seems to be a little bit into the dance. And so what they're doing is they're sizing each other up. Now, male and Nyala, when they do fight, it is quite a vicious fight. And they've even been known to occasionally wound each other and fatally wound each other. So instead of fighting like that, they prefer to do a lateral display. And this display involves making that silvery white mane up on the ridge of their back stand up. You'll see that the male's tail will stand up as well. And at the moment you can't really see it, but underneath that thick tail is quite a lot of white. And so display that bit of white, display that white mane down the back of on the top of their ridge. Oh, no, it looks like the male on the left's decided he's going to engage again. So it looked like he just took a half-time break, took a quick snack from that acacia tree, and now they've continued on with their lateral display. And Inyala aren't territorial. They don't have breeding seasons either. So they can breed at any time of the year. So they're not fighting for territory. What this display is about, it's dominance. So he wants to be the dominant male in case a female comes by who is in estrus, and he'll be able to mate with her. And because they don't have breeding seasons, they typically will do this throughout the year because they need to make sure that when a female comes by, they're the male who is going to mate with them. So you'll see dropping their head down, putting the hair on their ridge, standing up. Now, I'm sure in the next couple of seconds we might see the very bushy tail stand up as well. And how is that? Very slow, a very slow dance. And they will often walk in circles around each other, as you're seeing like this. And it's not always necessarily only two bulls. I've seen 5, 6 bulls before of around the same age do this lateral display. And only in 2 occasions in the last 7 years have I ever seen them get into full contact when neither male decides to submit. And it was one vicious fight. Sometimes they get distracted, like the one on the right. You'll see he's pulling out again, but that's, I think, the same male earlier that sort of submitted for a bit and then engaged again. And that is quite typical to sort of come in and out of this display. And he's generally the male who will lose this epic dance-off. Now, unfortunately for them, this is also a period of time where they are the most vulnerable. You can imagine having your head down and they're watching their opponent carefully, that they're not taking too much note of what's around them. And leopards, lions, and even cheetah will take advantage of male Inyala during this display because they know that they're so preoccupied. There we go, there's the tail up. Have a look at the big white flash underneath the tail. Wow, That's incredible. And it's so clean. I'm sure the bit of rain last night helped to wash off any dirt off that white, which is making it stick out far more dramatically. Critter Freak, you are most certainly correct. This is an incredible display. And it's very unusual for antelope to have a behavior like this, where instead of fighting, they rather do a display to try to show their size. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's what horns are. So, I mean, every male antelope has horns and big horns. Like a big male kudu has those big spiral horns. And that is also a sort of display towards both males and females about their size, their condition, and hopefully impress the females and scare off males. And although Inyala do also have horns, which will play part of that, they do this display as well to hopefully ward off any other males wanting to be dominant in this particular area. Looks like once again they're having a quick bite to eat. Their little break between rounds. Well, the male on the left started to walk off again. And this can go on for hours. I've observed male Inyala outside my house before doing this for hours, just on and off the whole time. They don't necessarily stay completely engaged for that period of time. They will do what they did now, sort of take a quick break, maybe a quick leaf or two, and then carry on with their display until one backs down. Now you'll notice when you look at their tail, although they've got a very bushy tail, when their tail is down, you don't see that white. And that's a very clever adaptation that they have. Because if their whole tail was that white, shocking color, they would easily be able to be seen by predators. And the fact that it's underneath the tail means that the only time that white will be displayed is when they're busy doing this, predators doing this process. But at least it minimizes the chances that a predator may see that white bushy tail. And there's a lot of theories as well behind, so a kudu also has that white underneath their tail. Chris, yeah, you would imagine that they would need to do some replenishing, but fortunately they're not exerting too much energy. So I'm sure that they don't need to eat or drink too much. So like I was saying, there's a bit of a theory to other reasons why they might have that white underneath their tail, same with male kudu. And one of those reasons is that when they're running off, they lift their tails up just like a Inyala would do. Oh, we actually got kudu running just behind them, which are lifting up their tail as they run. And just like a warthog puts its tail up when it runs, you'll often see kudu and Inyala do that as well. It acts as a follow me sign, so the rest of the group can see where they run to. But they believe that kudu and Inyala, they recognize the fact that they put up this white tail and the predators might be able to follow them. And while the lion's busy chasing them, their tail's up, if they run through a thicket, they drop that tail down. And therefore this predator that's been following this flash of white will lose it for a second or two, and that's because he's been focusing on the color more so than the antelope, and maybe he will lose him, and that extra second or two that allows it to keep changing direction might mean that antelope can disappear. Right, let's move forward a bit, see if they're still doing their display. I did see some kudu running behind them. I wonder what the kudu are running from, but I haven't seen the kudu alarm call, or at least heard the kudu's alarm call. They've got a very explosive call, sounds a little bit like a dog bark, and the loudest of all the alarm calls in the area. It's like bah, bah. Here we go. I believe they're getting some great feedback from all our lovely viewers that you're enjoying this Inyala dance. It is quite an interesting behavior. And it seems that they have now either completely given up fighting or they're just taking a quick break. So it's a very good opportunity now for us to zoom in and have a closer look at all the different colors on the Inyala. Looks like he's got a strange line just below his mane. Trying to get a little bit closer. I wonder if that's an old wound. Maybe from the horn of another Inyala. one of the colors I love on an adult male Inyala like this, if you look at the tips of the Inyala horn, you'll see that they go white, and you can often age them by how long that white tip is. And I've always wondered, what would the purpose be for that white tip? I'm not sure if any of you back home know what the purpose might be, and if you do, please do send through your comments. I've tried my hardest to search why or what benefit having those white tips might have, but I've never been able to find a good reason. Oh, look, he's just lifted his head up. He's probably heard something. You'll notice quite big ears, much like kudu, who have massive ears. I think in relation, or in proportion, the kudu's ears are bigger than the Inyala, but very typical for a browsing antelope. So a browsing antelope meaning that they eat leaves, and so they're generally in much denser vegetation. And because they're in denser vegetation, although they have good eyesight, they need to rely very heavily on their sense of hearing, just for that breaking of the branch that a leopard might accidentally do as it steps down while stalking an Inyala. In Phinda, we've got a very high density of Inyala, apparently the highest density of Inyala than any other reserve in South Africa, and so it is one of the favorite prey species for leopard. I'm just going to reposition one more time. I think he's going to walk into an open, which is going to be great. And because they are antelope that spend a lot of time in dense vegetation, that is why leopards tend to hunt them quite a bit. Lisa, I agree. I couldn't actually agree more with you, at least with the antelope that we get here on Phinda. Definitely the most beautiful faces. Have a look just below the eye. You'll see those two white dots, that white band between the eyes, and then the white around their muzzle. And something I also love about them is that mane that comes down their neck, and then they get that little bit of white banding again. Marcel says he knows the perfect piece of music for their dance. I'm sure it's a very slow song. All right, while this Inyala works its way around this thorn tree without trying to be too affected by the thorns that those juicy leaves will be protected by, let's head over to Dylan, who I'm sure is just as hungry as this Inyala.
So as Jeanre's been increasing his bird tally, because he's putting a lot of pressure on me to get his bird list up, came across some beautiful male lion tracks. These animals can cover massive distances in a very short space of time, and it is from last night sometime. So they could be kilometers ahead of us. I'm not sure, but anyway, we'll just amble along here. Maybe we're lucky and we see him. There's two sets over here. They're coming down. We'll actually climb off the vehicle later, and we'll give you a good idea of the size of them. Just to roughly over here. If that's a lion track there, Jean-Andre can see it nicely from where he is, and putting my hand next to it, that lion track is comfortably the size of my hand. And this is resting. This is just like padding along. There's no, if they jumping on an animal and they got their claws extended, that'll be almost the size of a dinner plate. The size of these. So there are two males that walked down here. Then one actually turned off here, up into here, around there, and then off. So what this animal would have done, he would have turned here, lifted his tail, and actually sent, in fact, there's this tree, these branches have been sprayed, so it obviously turned over here, lifted his tail, actually scent marked on this bush, and then came back down onto the road and carried on going. So these two males are on a territorial patrol. They're just doing their thing. There probably would have been a bit of roaring during the evening as well. But so we'll just carry on bumbling down here, and we'll see. Hopefully, we might be lucky. You never know. Or find something else. So for those of you wondering, we've got 2 prides at Swallow, 2 prides, and those pride sizes vary, depending on how many sub-adults are in it and how many have left. We're not sure of our exact numbers. But aside from the prides, then you get these sub-adults when they move away from these prides that are covering different areas and that. And and that's the fun thing, is you come out here and say, oh, here's 2 males tracking down here. But you can encounter any other individuals as well, sub-adult males, females, and your pride structures, we tend to think of a pride as, okay, there's a unit, and they're always going to walk together, and that's just what they do. It's not the case. Excuse me. Females that have had small cubs, or that have got small cubs, because they have small cubs. Females with very, very small cubs will often... So I'm just checking if there's anything else here in terms of cat activity here. But females with very small cubs will often stay away from the pride for a couple of weeks before they actually introduce them to the pride, and they will hide those cubs and then intermittently join up with the pride, and then but they'll often hunt by themselves as well. So although that they are still active members of the pride, but that pride doesn't have to be sitting together the entire time. Your pride males, the very nature of them means that they need to be defending territories, roaring, patrolling territories, so they can't be sitting with those females in the lap of luxury all the time. There's also this misconception that is frequently put forward that the females do all the hunting and the males just come in and they take kills. Absolutely, the males will take kills if they're there. On larger carcasses or smaller carcasses, they may even take the whole thing if the female catches it and they hear the kill, and they'll come in and they'll take it, no problem. But your males are instrumental in tackling large, dangerous game. And I'm talking about like things like buffalo, young elephants, giraffe are classified as dangerous game. There's lots of accounts of leopards taking hippos. And that's often your males that swing it in the favor of the lions. But if you think about the ecological benefit to the lionesses of letting males take kills, it's crucial, because your males are the ones that are defending the territories. They're the ones that are often running big risk in terms of fighting with other males and that. So, and your females, the risk that they run is the moment there's another male takeover of the pride. As we know, they go in and they'll kill whatever cubs they can find. So there's a huge amount of benefit to the lionesses of a pride. If they do catch something and a male comes along and says, all right, well, cool, no problem, have the kill. But males are incredibly adept at hunting. They are brilliant hunters. Single male lions can hunt as effectively as a coalition of males or females in a pride. So, but anyway, we're going to head back over to Steve and see what they got down on that side, and John and I, we're going to carry on doing some good birding for him.
Thanks, Dylan. Well, we had a little emerald spotted wood dove walking across the road, and he looked like half of his bottom had been removed by a bird of prey, possibly. Still able to walk and fly to a degree. Poor little fellow. Still alive, though. And we're just following up on lots of vultures on and around Simbambili. And now the rain is returning. On a day like this, vultures, if they've been feeding on something, will remain for days afterwards due to the temperature. They're not able to fly, really, in this weather. It's not that they're not able to fly. It costs a lot of energy to fly in cold weather. So they'll just sit and wait. And so we've decided to move on out. Sorry about the bumpy road. Gillian, when the weather's bad, they just sit. They sit and they wait, but they've got very broad wings with little fingers for bleeding the air off. And when the temperature increases, we generate thermals on the ground. They generate up into the sky, and vultures are very, very good at catching thermals. And so they elevate that way. Costs them no energy to do so. very efficient way. And if there's no thermals, they're just going to sit. They might move from one another, but they don't really wear cold weather. 35 feet a vulture's been seen before. I think it was an Egyptian vulture seen by a passenger plane, just sort of hovering high in the sky. It's pretty cold up there. Well, lots of adaptations for that. Birds obviously store a lot of oxygen inside their bodies to make them inside bones and air sacs. Well, I don't think they store it in the bones, but the bones are hollow, making them very light. And the vultures having a very broad wing for their body mass allows that pickup like a glider. You've seen a glider before, of course. For the body mass underneath the glider, there's a very large wingspan. That's to pick the glider up, to use the completely energy efficient lift. Okay, so we're going to be getting back onto Djuma in a moment. Simbambili, you've been fun, but the lions have vanished. They've just vanished. Sky, you love vultures. Vultures are very important, as Taylor was talking about before, very important organisms. If you find vultures and birds of prey in your system, you know your system's healthy. It's all healthy. Natural scavengers, predators of large sizes such as martial eagles and even the smaller ones indicate biodiversity. High biodiversity means a high diversity of large prey animal or predatory birds and mammals, which means lots of different habitats, healthy ecosystem. As soon as your raptors and vultures disappear, there are some concerns. Because they're the obvious ones you can see. You can't always notice the smaller guys that have disappeared, but their disappearance will have a cascading effect on the larger guys. Oh, that rain has started again. We've taken most of the covers off. Very good. Well, while we turn on to Djuma now in the next few moments, let's send you over to Trish, who's been enjoying the morning on Vuyatela.
Djuma has been treating me well. Apart from being wet, at least we had some buffalo, which was really nice, and our chameleon. Steve is absolutely right. It's starting to come down a bit more now. And move to the south. It's very helpful because it's into our face. But you have to get down to the south in order to move north, so we have to bear it. Now, we haven't been able to find our hyena culprit. I suspect he's still near the camp. Now, also in this weather, the roads that we can drive are a little restricted. That's why both Steve and I are in the west, where the roads are a little bit flatter. In the east, the roads are quite windy, and also the drainage goes through them and all the little tributaries. So it becomes a little bit difficult to drive. So that's why we're staying out in the west and trying to drive really carefully. That's also why I wanted to go around Gallagher Pan to the Gallagher Pan Road that comes out by Vuya Dam onto Mvubu, but I don't think in this weather I can do it. I thought we would see some ellies today because of the weather. And also I've been seeing lots of elephant dung around. It has been quiet, but I'm sure that they are around, probably also huddling together, and probably in the east where the water is collecting all over the place. But it is not the best for us to drive on. Even getting down these little tiny little hills can be difficult because the car can slide a little bit. And also the soil when you go through dips are a little clayish. So you can slide even extra. Yay! Taylor has found some elephants, so let's go over to her and see if she can give us some of that luck.
We did, and we wanted to show you Coolmore drinking at the dam, but unfortunately the signal hasn't been great today, but I suspect that's due to weather. If I have to move one more tree off of the road, this is ridiculous, right? Off come the gloves, very dramatically. My koi that was keeping my legs nice and warm. Ha! I don't know if I'm going to actually be able to move this tree. Also, you're going to see how round I am because of all the 6,000 jackets I have on. So this is just one of the very many things we have to do as guides is... Kat is just smiling, going, there's not a chance that you're going to move this red bush wallow. Red bush wallow, great wood for fire, by the way, but also really, really heavy. Yeah, no, I don't think I can. No, okay, cool. So yeah, we'll turn around. We'll go down another road. I'm not going to. I'm warm now, though. Let me get back into the vehicle. Yeah, everyone's telling me I need to eat more spinach. I love spinach. I would just eat spinach all day long. Anyways, okay, so that was a fail. So now I shall reverse and we'll go down a different road. It does mean, though, that the elephants obviously came through here. It's not old. I think that could have happened maybe yesterday. That big breeding herd of elephants that we spent a bit of time with was frolicking about here. So I suspect that it's of their doings. It's also very it's also very hard to turn your neck when you are so laid up. Like the Michelin man. Ha, okay. Where are you? So a bachelor group of elephants also came down to drink. We had a herd of buffalo at Ndlovu Dam, so they may have moved up in this direction. So I'll keep my eyes open. We're basically just on the crest of this sort of wooded area going back down towards the drainage line. It's also where we had that very exciting morning with lions and leopards. So I had to scan around to see if that female leopard and her sub-adult son was around, but I didn't see anything. I don't think I'd see them up in the tops of the trees today. They'd probably be like the lions laying flat down in the grass, trying to keep warm. We've also seen almost no birds, except the vultures. I lie, okay, we saw lots of vultures, but other than that, there's been really nothing else around. What was that sound? Anything? Pajama donkey, don't tell my mother, but I don't have any long pants anymore. I have successfully ripped a few pairs beyond repair. So, and Hoedspruit is not really the town that sells, everything that you'd think that you need. So sadly, I went looking for long pants a few days ago. I was not successful. They were not appropriate work pants. So yeah, as long as the top half is warm, it's okay. And then you drape things like kakois, and I see I have had red blanket fluff also on my legs. I might have to bring my duvet out with me. Okay, well, I'm going to try and sit and listen and hear if I can hear any breaking branches and find those elephants. Off you go to Tswalu, where they are just starting to thaw out.
So we're just scanning here, see if we can get a couple of zebra down there. Birchall zebra, also called plain zebra. Good lion food in this area. But otherwise fairly quiet. This wind has just been picking up. In fact, Jandre, if you can go over those big mountains in the distance over there to the right, to the right of your frame, we can all see over the tops of those mountains. I mean, look at that scenery, how beautiful it is. But see those very, very fine scudding clouds creeping over the tops of those peaks. And the temperature since we went out this morning has just been dropping. From the time we left to where we are now, it's probably gone down about 5 or 6 degrees already. So yeah, we thought the day would be warming up. Well, it's just gone the opposite direction. So you probably find like a lot of the animals are actually sheltering now. But how magnificent is that scenery, eh? Wowzers. I love it out here. Alamo, I agree totally. Stunning is like, yeah. And you know, you just actually need to let these places speak for themselves. I mean, instead of me trying to get all flowery there, you know, just look at it. And we just use these high vantage points every now and again, and just scare. And you never know when I get a cheetah sitting on a dune crest, or we've had some good. That's correct. Some of you are wondering if we've got elephants in Swallow. Swallow, yeah, we don't have ellies here. No elephants. And there's a number of reasons for that. But, you know, these environments are very sensitive, these semi-arid areas. And elephants would have a massive, massive, massive impact on these environments. Sounds like Jared in Pinda has some sleepy animal. I have no idea what it is. But head over there and let's find out.
Dylan, you are most certainly correct. We have a sleep, and it is so exciting. You have no idea how excited I am right now. This is not a white rhino, everyone. It is a black rhino. And one, I'm excited because it's a rhino, but to have a black rhino this relaxed, this close to the vehicle on Pinda is spectacular. We do have a couple of black rhinos who are quite relaxed, but for most parts of it, most of our black rhinos are quite shy and they tend to move away from the vehicle. But this particular individual couldn't care about us at all. And I'm amazed that he's busy sleeping at the moment. Maybe it's because this is normally the time of day when they're up, moving around, busy feeding on trees, busy browsing. This particular area where but this is not what we expected. We expected to maybe see the back end of a black rhino moving off into the thicket while it feeds. But to have one feeding right by us is spectacular. Now, something you'll notice when you look at this black rhino, you might think that it's quite a young rhino, because in fact, this is probably a fully grown black rhino, and I think it's a male. A bit difficult to tell for now, but just looking at the size and how wide his horn is, I think this is a male rhino. And size-wise, black rhinos are much lighter or smaller than that. Or males probably somewhere between 1.2, 1.5 tons, maximum about 1.5 tons. I don't think he's quite there. Females much less than that. And although if you had to stand up, shoulder height is almost the exact same, but their build is just completely different. They're far more slender, a little bit more stocky, I think is probably the right word. And you'll see while he's busy sleeping, his ears is moving. So he's got his one ear, his left ear, our right, pointing towards us, and his right ear pointing backwards. And as I say that little, you're commenting about his ears, and that different fact to that of a white rhino. So when I look at the ears of a black rhino, I actually think they look a little bit more like the ears of a hyena. Now, myself, you can quickly just zoom in here. So I just want to show you the difference between a white rhino's ears and a black rhino, because the way he's lying now if you had no idea the difference between a white and black rhino, one of the things you can do is look at the ears. Now, this is a white rhino, and you'll notice that the ears are very, very long. But then have a look at the tips of the ears. The tips of the ears kind of point more sideways or 45 degrees, whereas the black rhino, his tips are straight up. Do you see that? And if you look at this particular individual over here, if you look at his left, our right, you'll see that the tips of his ears are pointing straight to the sky, whereas a white rhino points sort of more 45 degrees to rhino. Was in long grass, one of the things you can do is look at the tips of the ears. Now, there are other ways to tell that this is a black rhino without having to see the lip. Obviously, the noticeable difference between a white and black rhino is the lip. Now, I'm just going to ask Marcel to come back to my book just so I can describe to you. So the lip of a white rhino, the lip of a black rhino is a little bit like a tortoise's lip. They're also known as a hook-lipped rhino or V. So their lip is like a V like that, and that's for pulling in branches towards their mouth. Where a white rhino, also known as a square-lipped rhino, has a very flat lip, and that's for pulling on the grass. Now, when a rhino like this is lying down, you obviously can't see the lip, and like I said, there are other ways you can tell the difference. Now, I don't think this book's got a very good example of it, but have a look at the back of a black rhino, and you can see it on this individual as well. You'll notice that his back is, I said, looks like a horse's saddle, so it's very arched, where a white rhino has a more flat back. And you can see when you look at this particular male as well, he's got quite a arched back. And then because a white rhino has a much larger head and a longer neck, they've got a very big muscle above the shoulder, or between the shoulder and the head, where what you're seeing over there isn't necessarily his muscle. Yes, there is some muscle in that bulge, but that's also bone and part of his spine. Now, you'll notice when you glance down the body and the flank of this black rhino, you'll see that he's got quite a few wounds and injuries. Now, those scrape marks down the side of his body, those could be from fighting, and they also might just be from trees. But when you see in the middle, there's a big round wound. And now you might think, oh, did another rhino stick his horn through this rhino? A lot of people will often phone when they see this, and they'll get hold of the ranger and say, we've just found a rhino. It looks like it's been shot, because it looks like a gunshot wound, but it actually is not a gunshot wound, and it is not a wound from fighting. It is from a parasite. Now, I'm sure over the many years of your watching WildEarth, you may have seen giraffe with the parasite on their neck, and has a very similar parasite that rhino have. And it is a worm-type parasite that lays the larva in the skin of the rhino. And the reason why the rhinos looks far more looks worse or parasite is that a rhino, a particular black rhino, is far more aggressive in the way that he rubs his skin up against a branch. So that parasite. Alright, I do apologize. I believe we are having some technical issues. We are in a bit of a gully here, and that is part of this signal everywhere. But like I was saying, is that the giraffe who has this parasite, although it irritates them, they do rub it up against the tree, but not quite as vicious particular or as black rhinos do. They'll go find a fallen over tree, and because that parasite is completely irritating them, they'll scratch and rub very hard, constantly. And oxpeckers, you've all seen oxpeckers on the back of rhinos, buffalo, and they will eat and pick away at that wound as well. So they, although clean it from all the dead skin, they do cause it to look far worse than in fact what it is. Now, I'm just going to see if you can hear. There's a bit of wind. He was sighing almost. He's going. Alright, so let's go back to telling the difference between black and white rhino, because I'm sure most of you have probably never seen a black rhino, and if you are ever lucky to go on safari, I would love for you to be able to go and be able to see black rhino. But let's go back to the book. Now, there's something that's also very noticeable, a black rhino, that you won't see on this particular rhino, because we do dehorn our rhinos, is have a look at the front horn of a rhino is what we call a primary horn. the back horn is known as the secondary horn. And look how long the primary horn is, but also look how long the secondary horn is. So with black rhinos, you'll often find that the primary horn and secondary horn is very similar in size. Although the primary horn will always be longer and the secondary horn will always be wider. But let's go to the white rhino. Have a look at that noticeable difference. Tiny, tiny secondary horn and very long primary horn. So from a distance, if you see the horns of a white rhino, and you see, okay, the horns are much longer than one. The second horn is longer than the first horn, sorry, shorter than the first horn. You know it's a white rhino. If they are very similar in size, you know it's a black rhino. Another telltale sign is that a black rhino, because they're browsers, they have a very short neck. So often when they're walking, their head's up like this, and it almost looks like their head's on their shoulder. Where a white rhino has a very long neck because they don't want to have to stretch to get to the grass. Their head's always kind of down like this. Fascinating, isn't it? The different adaptations that all these animals have, even to their different feeding techniques. But this is so special. You're so blessed to be able to have and rest. I do hope that he stands up, because it does look very small, and when they do stand up, they do look slightly larger. But he's even swaying from side to side, so I wonder if he's in a deep REM sleep. Although he's sleeping, you'll see his ears are still working, so he's still very aware of his surrounding. And rhinos who have poor eyesight, they sense of hearing, so that's exactly what this male's doing now. Although he's sleeping, he's listening, and he's listening for the breaking of a branch. So Douglas, there's quite a few different signs that they might give off. So generally, if a black rhino, he'll stand up, lift his head high up, and he'll just stare straight at you and not take his eyes off you. Then you know that there's some sort of agitation from his side. Something else that they'll do is they'll stomp at the ground, or I'm going to do it quite quietly because I don't want to get his attention, but they make a sound like this. And that's a sound that they make when they're very agitated. But I guess, particularly with black rhino, who come across as being far more aggressive than white rhino, although there's a bit of a debate there, you know that a black rhino is grumpy with you when he's busy running or charging towards your vehicle. So typically what they will do is, if they are unhappy with your presence, they're either going to run away or they're going to run at you and to try and be a threat towards you. They're probably not going to do anything to you or the vehicle, as to say, but they're just trying to be threatening. White rhino is a little bit more different. If a white rhino is a bit uncomfortable with you, they do generally tend to just run away. You very seldom will have a white rhino show aggression towards people or a vehicle, where black rhinos most certainly do. But I can tell you, the fact that this male is completely passed out, he's very aware of our presence, don't you worry. When we arrived, he lifted his head, he looked at us, we kept quiet because I didn't know how he was going to react. And as you can see, he's not concerned about us. So Marcel, I don't know if you want to quickly pan into this open area. How fantastic. So we've come, and it's actually quite a large open area to our right. I'm not sure if Marcel's going to be able to see them, but we've got some giraffe that have come over as well. And not an area where you would expect to see giraffe in the very big open areas, because there's no trees for them to feed on. But they're most likely just moving through here to go and feed on some of the acacia trees to my left, ahead of them. And we are in... Oh, do you see what the female on the left is going to do? Look right in front of her. You'll see there's a rib cage. And in winter, you see it more so than in summer. But giraffe, kudu, inyala, they do something called osteophagy. And although they're going to look like they're carnivorous right now, because they're busy scratching around a carcass, they're looking for bones. And they won't swallow those bones. You'll see if she's able to find a bone, she's going to lift her head with the bone in her mouth, chew away at the bone, not too hard because obviously she doesn't want to damage her teeth, but with those molars kind of grind away at the bones and then suck as well. And they're going to be getting the nutrients and particular calcium that those bones will have. Now you'll see it in winter more than summer, and that's because of the lack of rains and their diets changing, that they do seem to lack a little bit more calcium in winter than what they do in summer. And I've in fact seen giraffe pick up entire skulls. And so a couple of years ago, oh, there's the one on the left, oh, just dropped it. So they're not doing a very good job of keeping those bones in their mouths, but a very strange behavior. Now imagine coming around the corner the very first time you see a giraffe, and the giraffe has the bones of an animal in its mouth, or in my case the skull of an inyala. It was busy feeding on the horns of the inyala. But it is so bizarre. And just like when they drink water, you'll see alright, so while we sit here and wait to see if this rhino stands up and see if these giraffe manage to get a decent sized bone and chew on it, I believe that it's starting to rain in Djuma, so we're going to head over to Trishala before the rain gets too heavy there.
It is raining quite a bit now. That's why we tried to kind of stop driving for a little bit. You can hear it. The wind has also picked up. It's still soft, but it is properly coming down and getting dripped on from the rain roof and all the covers. Let's look at these poor birds that are flying. Poor birds trying to fly through this weather. Oh, they're just on the top there. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see them with the rain roof. Well, hopefully this is perfect weather for a fireside chat. Just as long as it doesn't rain too much. Then there'll be no fire. But definitely I will need to warm up. Sure, Dylan will need to warm up. And we will have a fireside chat this evening at 7 p.m. So right after our sunset drive, an hour after we end drive, we'll start a nice fireside chat. Dylan and I will be talking about all sorts of things, about himself, about the Kalahari, about Swalu, and about the magnificent sightings he's been having. I really hope, though, that it won't rain. Gorgeous. All right, I'm going to head into camp. It's just too cold and too wet and rainy. I'm going to send you over to Jared and his rhino for the final few minutes of the show.
Oh, perfect timing to come back to us, everyone. Look, you can see that he's lifted his head. Now, have a look at his left eye, our right. You'll see that there's some brown there. It almost looks like war paint. And that is just from the color of the soil that's in this area. So he's been lying down with his face on that soil. Oh, he's just completely rocked over. So I think he thought, maybe, am I going to stand up, go feed? Am I going to continue on sleeping? And he has decided that he's going to continue on sleeping. Look in front of his front leg. You'll also see some of the wounds from that parasite. Shame. It looks terrible, but it really doesn't harm them too much. It's more of an irritation than anything. But how incredible. He's lifted his head again. Now you can see that lip that I was telling you about earlier, the hook lip. Oh, there we go. He might yawn. He's yawning. Oh, cool. Oh. There we go. Let's see if you can see that lip again. Oh, he's busy chewing. I wonder if he had some branches in his mouth that he's busy chewing on. So he's putting on a show just for you. Alright, so as you all know, we we do normally cut the shaft at about 9:30 South African time, but the head office have decided that when you're with the black rhino, you just cannot leave it. And so we're going to extend the show just slightly this morning, maybe by a minute or two, to see if this black rhino gets up and shows us his entire body. But how fantastic. What a way to end off I think it's Wednesday today. I get lost on the days. What a way to end off a Wednesday morning with a very elusive animal that in most national parks throughout Africa, we hardly ever get to see these. And we're very fortunate here at Pinda to have a pretty good, healthy population. Although, even though we've got a healthy population, we generally don't have this kind of view of them. So he's starting to get a little bit more active. I don't know if you can hear something off in the distance that's caught his attention, or if he's just slowly waking up. This is exactly how I was this morning. I think I pressed snooze about 6 times before I got out of bed. It was raining, so I think it's a little bit understandable. But I think he's pressing snooze in his head at the moment, saying, it's time to wake up. No, let's go back to sleep. You also see, just like I mentioned on his face, if you look at his legs, you are so correct. They're very strange looking faces, but I do agree their faces are sweet. And particularly, I think one of my most favorite of all the babies is a black rhino. And it is because of their cute little face that they have, that sort of long face with the funny looking lip and the big ears. It's definitely one of the cuter of all the little babies out here. But like I was saying, if you look at his leg, you'll also see that he's got some of the brown sand from the soil that's around here. So that's not an injury or any other skin disease that he has. It's just from, I think, when he kneeled down to maybe lie down, that some of that mud got on his leg. And you're saying how cute their face is. It's also quite cute having a look at the lips between the horns and the lips, all those wrinkles, which I'm starting to also become quite used to, slowly with age getting wrinkles. And I think this male over time has a wrinkly lip. All right, everyone. Well, unfortunately, that is all for this morning. I hope that you've all had a wonderful sunrise safari with us. Please do join us this afternoon for our sunset safari. I'm going to sit here for a little bit longer, see if this black rhino gets up and moves. But until this afternoon, have a good day.